what in the world? That was weird. I was hacked, and they took away my great opening too. It was lovely. Just fill that words in. I'm going to start again. What in the heck was that? That's amazing. Okay, hold on. While I'm at it, I'm going to check the desktop audio. Hopefully that default is okay. That was weird. When I went to check, my microphone wasn't making any noise. And then when I went to check it, it was a big line of weird code. It wasn't even the wrong device was chosen. It was the deep state. It was so funny because I was just telling you guys, I'm going to start again. I'm kidding. I'm back. Hi, welcome to the show. We'll just cut off the top part of that. You didn't know. You don't need to see all that stuff at all. It happens. If I was on real television, Katie Turr would have said, we've lost connection with HAL, and we'll try and reclaim that in a second. But let's go to Frank Fagluzzi, just because his name is so fun to say. I did. I entered the Martix. This is true. Yeah, but it literally looked in the device setting, and instead of just being off by one or something, which occasionally happens, it was literally just a line of squiggly code. It looked like the kind of stuff when an image file is written in ASCII. Yes, it was Rudy. I blame Rudy. I'm keeping it that way. Now, I don't know if there is a new Rudy episode today or not, but a boy can dream. Hold on. I keep checking back to see if one has been loaded in there in time. But let's see. Rudy. We'll just check it, Rudy. Everything. And Rudy's common sense. And the thing. Open up, you silly page. Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. What's the... That's the January 6th videos that were being... Now, there hasn't been a response one yet. Just his setup, basically. His one, like, it's all perverting justice. Which, yeah, ironically, I know. Nothing so far, but we will keep checking back. Right now, this is where we are. We're just at Rudy's Common Sense over there on the... I only check it on Rumble because I'm not going anywhere else looking for Rudy Giuliani. I don't need to show up on an ATF watch list. This is the closest thing to one that he's done. And this is basically like making a preemptive strike of BS before you get hit in the face with the rake you put in the yard. And it's, what? Joe Pinion, candidate for U.S. Senate, says Schumer doesn't like black and brown people. Okay, that'll be a working. Go for that. Work. Inside the Sussman trial. Oh God, they're just swinging. To provide safety, we need more than gun control. Yes, we need teen control. And Rudy Giuliani is just your man. We'll send him in to go after the teens. By the way, I don't know what it is lately, but my cats have figured out that I'm in here doing this show, and they know I'm going to be in here for a stretch, so they sit outside the door meowing. They're like, what the ever-loving hell, dude? So, and yet my kid and my mom who's visiting, they're right there. They're right on the other side of that wall in total cat petting distance. Lahara. Well, the cats want to come in and want to sit on me. They want to sit in my lap. They want to make a mess. They want to cover me in fur just as I roll myself. Just because the women out there want to see me rolling myself. That's what they want. Lahara. Do their paws fit under the door? Yes, they do, Robert. Just enough. Because the house had carpet in it, and we put tile down because of all the stuff I roll around before we moved in. That was the swap out. And so the doors are cut for carpet, and then the floor is flush. So, yeah, there you go. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Put one of those, like, door stops under there. That's not a bad idea, actually. We used to use those on the farm in Kentucky, like where you insulate the house. Our idea of insulation was a long sock filled with sand stuffed up against the bottom of the door. Anybody else do that? It's pretty easy, actually. It's you just get a big long knee sock or two, and you fill them with dirt. It doesn't matter, really. And then,
you tie up the end or whatever, and then you just push it up against the bottom of the door. I'm a straight guy, and I think the rolling dance is hysterical. Oh, thank you, Wes. I appreciate that. Liberal Dan, thank you. And by the way, welcome everybody. The reason we're called Mega Worldwide is because you folks are from all over the place. Now, clearly there is a panic going on in the world of the January 6th stuff, to include a special news bulletin from MTG Live. Okay, now this is MTG Live, episode 6, special news bulletin. And she's got her gobo. She's got her multicolored backlights, purple and blue. Definitely not. Do not get them confused with a love for Prince or Pride Month. It's these are just accent colors that work well with blonde hair, I presume. She's got notes. She's got an empty coffee cup, which is, in deep Buddhism reflective of her brain. And then the oldest mic they had sitting around the Capitol. Now, I'm size-wise, I'm slightly over average, an inch above average. That's all you need to know. I'm 5'9". The national average is 5'8", and so I'm not an overly big dude, but I'm not severely diminutive in any way. And my microphone. Thank you, Robert, for being a member for 14 months. It's lovely. Look at that, over a year, my friend. I have this little mic right here, and it's exactly the size I need it to be, and it could actually be a little higher. I got to be honest. As a matter of fact, because I was moving some stuff around, I'm just gonna do that in there so you can appreciate my dulcet tones and the pithy nuances of my speaking voice. But in the process, this mic is pretty reasonable size. That I don't know what's happening here. I don't know if she bought I think I know this mic from studio stuff. And look at her head. How does anybody know? Is she tiny? Is that what we're right? Is it just me? Is that not? Maybe it's the camera. Maybe she's just, it's got a narrow depth of field or something. I don't know. It just sticks out to me as very odd. Now, before we get into this, I have a little show and tell today. I was cleaning my kid's room and doing some decorating, as you do, hanging some League of Legends posters and putting up some shelving to put Zelda characters on it, as you do, because when the action figures get out of control, and they still mean something to you, but you can't touch them all at once. Small display shelves around the place are necessary. So I did a full-on, low-end HGTV segment, right? And in going through one of my kids' older boxes of toys, I found this guy. Now, this you'll recognize is a stuffed replica of a koala. It's very adorable, super soft. It's high quality. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing country of origin is probably China, but the quality on this, it's cute. It's soft. It's carryable by, because it was from when my kid was very young. It's not a Beanie Baby, but it's definitely got a little bag of sand right around here to keep it belly down when you lay it on something. The thing about this thing is I bought this at the recreation of Noah's Ark in Kentucky. So if you don't know, there's an Ark exhibit in Kentucky where they've rebuilt the Ark full size. And I went through it with Charlene May, who opens for me when I'm on the road on great occasion. When we were in Lexington, we took the drive going it had opened for a little while. It was having tax issues and was looking like it's going away. And by the way, my other dream house besides a missile silo is to buy the Ark after it goes out of business and live in it as a mansion. I think, personally, hysterical. Okay, that said, I bought this in the gift shop because some of you will remember that my argument that the Noah's Ark story was bullshit was that there were koalas on board. And there is no way that a koala can walk from Australia to Israel, right, in 9 weeks. It's just not fucking possible. 9 years later, they showed up and they missed it. Okay, so, but I was like, I'm going to buy one of these because I was doing that bit at the time. If you'll, some of you may recall, I love that bit. It's super fun. And I get to do my impression of a walking koala speaking with an Australian accent. It's a good time, you know? Yeah, it's Ken Ham's place. That's right, James Black. Thank you for the super chat. So I picked this up and I went up to the counter and I said, these are all buy one, get one free, right? 2 for the price of 1. And the woman behind the counter had no idea what I was talking about. And that's one of those jokes where I'm like, how in the hell do you not get that all the time? How can you sell one of these singular on the arc? I don't. Thank you, Robert. Oh, bless you. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, Robert, anyways. It's lovely that you're just here with us, and thank you so much. Right? You know what? This is a solid joke, but it's also what I would think is a relatively common joke. You know what I mean? For Christ's sake. Well, for Noah's sake. They should sell them in, all of them should come, they're all should be 2 for the price of 1. What the hell? All right. Anyways, so I mean, 2 by 2. How do you live in the place? You live there. All right. Yeah, it's a qualified joke, but one that anybody who's read the Bible would get, right? Yes, it's totally a dad joke category, but still. And by the way, I could have gone back and bought another one at full price just to have it or whatever, but I was like, fuck that. I'm buying 1. Because now it's a matter of principle. Thank you, James, for becoming a jalapeno. All right. Anyway, but I found it and it made that story like pop into my head. I am giving them too much credit. By the way, that guy was there at the Ark while we were there. Thank you, Alex. They were there. And a level 5 hype train, we're at 6%. We're almost there. We could get there. Just sub away, people. Sub like the wind. Koala T-Fine joke. Oh, thank you. That's great. But it became a matter of principle to buy the 1. But
of control.
Oh, shut up. We'll get to her in a second. I just have a feeling that as much of a I'm a Christian in the world of Christianness that she talks about all the time, I don't think she would get that joke. No matter how long I explained it. By the way, CSL cut a clip of me laughing at Debbie D'Souza's missed cue. Just took a piece of that out, and I'm going to post it later. It's like 7 minutes long. And I was watching it just to see where it started and ended, and I laughed out loud at the exact same moment I laughed when it happened. When she comes around the corner before he calls her. That's never gonna get old. Okay. Now, I don't know what the special news bulletin is, but since it's episode 6 and all she talks about is January 6th, just watched a tape copy of today's hearing. Don't ruin it for me. Oh, I won't. It was great. That part was great. This is 39 minutes long. We're not doing all of this. We'll do a chunk of it. But whenever she changes tacks, we're going to move on because I don't need any of this in my life. But I'm curious. This is the opening of the show. By the way, we're 6 minutes, 33 seconds, and this is where she first starts talking in this thing. And I thought I had a draggy opening while I'm getting set up. Criminy. Okay, here we go. MTG Special News Bulletin. Okay, what are you doing now? Oh, I turned the audio off.
Over 10,000 migrants coming through Mexico
oh my God.
to invade our...
Hold on. This is a perfect freeze frame. Can we all just enjoy this for a minute? I seriously, my genitals are crawling up near my spine right now in fear. This is about the migrant caravan, which by all right-wing accounts so far has been 5,000 people. The biggest one ever that they keep talking about is 15,000. She's now saying it's 10. Okay, let's see.
Prices that you can't afford. If you're a mom
Hold on. Things you can't afford.
in DC. Well, as you know, most of you at home are reeling and trying to keep up with out of control inflation, gas prices that you can't afford.
Yeah, gas prices you cannot afford. If you try to put gas in your Ford, it will not. Oh boy.
If you're a mom or a father or
both,
or if you're a grandparent, you can't find baby formula anywhere on any of the store shelves.
Isn't it usually mom or dad, mother or father? If you're a mom or a father.
We have an open
By the way, yes, you can.
Prices that you can't afford. If you're a mom or a father or if you're a grandparent, you can't find baby formula anywhere.
Well, if you're a grandparent, you're told to have a baby. I'm just saying. I mean, maybe you're doing some of the shopping, but
Where on any of the store shelves.
you can't find, what was that again? You can't find baby formula anywhere on any of the store shelves.
Inflation, gas prices that you can't afford. If you're a mom or a father or if you're a grandparent, you can't find baby formula anywhere on any of the store shelves. We have an open border that is completely out of control. And we just found out here recently that we have over 10,000 migrants coming through Mexico to invade our country.
Oh my God. Are they armed? Do they have tanks? They're going to invade our country? Invade our country with what? Service jobs? What is it? Jesus.
That's basically like an army.
It's basically like an army with a lot of babies and women, but an army of babies and women. The worst kind of army, really.
But you know what's happening?
Because what they do is they invade by crying on planes and slapping them in the aisles at the store and making you feel socially awkward and smoking over the crib. You know, a baby mama invasion.
In Washington, we have the Democrat agenda that they have had on their minds for years and years. It's all about gun control.
Is it?
While the Democrats ignore all the illegal shootings that happen all over the country.
I think we're trying to deal with the illegal shootings. I think what she means is the illegals that are shooting, I think.
In cities like Chicago, Atlanta, New York, LA, Detroit, and many other Democrat-run cities.
Yeah, or where all the crime is, where of course all the money is, and all the other stuff is, where all the coffee shops are, where all the offices are.
While they ignore those shootings, while they ignore those murders.
Well, I think most of what you're talking about would affect those things, especially domestic violence, and pop-off crimes. Those people not being able to get their hands on a gun and tightening the penalties around a felon using a gun or someone using a gun in the commission of a crime, which is one of the things that, by the way, the Republicans stripped out again.
And while they ignore the fact that those cities are some of the most strict gun control cities in the nation.
They can't, because we don't have border police at every state, they have to deal with all the guns coming in from the places that don't have strict gun laws at all and want to pass them out in the grocery store.
Here they are in Washington, D.C., trying to bring the same failing laws and put them in place. Why? Because they want to strip away your freedoms.
Yes, your freedom to decide you've had enough and open fire on your neighbors, because nothing shows your anger towards a tyrannical government like shooting up a barbershop or a grocery store or a high school. You know, that's what the Founding Fathers intended. A lunatic who has checked themselves into a mental hospital should be able to buy 30-round magazines.
Now, here's what I want you to do right now.
Oh, boy. Instructions. What do you think's coming? Does anybody have any guesses? I'm leaving my pants on. I'm just saying. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not going to a sex guru. I have no interest. Thank you very much. I mean, I'll go to the gym, but not one. Never mind.
We have a phone number that you can text or you can call and leave us a message. It's 855-MTG-LIVE, 855.
How do I? Now, why am I not on when this is live?
MTG Live, Or if you want to send us an email, something that we can read later.
Something. Oh, see, I was going to send you an email, but it's something you can read later. So I guess I'll have to, first it'll have to be in all caps, all single syllable words. This is going to be work.
Go ahead and send that to letters@mtglive.com. Letters@mtglive.com. We love your emails. We
Oh, yeah, I bet.
love your voicemails. We love your text messages.
You love them. You love easy.
But here's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Okay.
On episode 6 of
Yeah, this is episode 6. Yeah.
MTG Live, we're going to be covering everything about guns. But here's where I
Everything?
want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a very personal story that involves one Republican senator who is leading the charge to vote for Joe Biden's gun control to
Hold on. One very personal story about someone else.
take away your freedoms, to violate your Second Amendment rights, to violate due process, to
All right.
violate every single thing that America stands for.
Every single thing that America stands for. So not only this, but they're going to bring back slavery. They're going to, all right.
And I'm really upset about that.
Thank you,
And the
Kimberly.
reason why
You are?
I'm upset is
Because
Republicans should not be helping Joe Biden and the communist Democrats take away our God-given right to defend ourselves.
well, they aren't. They are not giving you, taking away your God-given right to defend yourself. What they are really recognizing that in the modern, efficient metallurgy and capabilities of modern firearms, projectiles, trajectories, grain count, and so forth, magazine capacity, sighting, and consistency in manufacturing, that if you want to defend yourself, you have a myriad of options, from a shotgun to a handgun within reasonable limits. And of course, you wouldn't need a multiple like 30 round capacity magazine to defend yourself, unless you were also defending your human trafficking and meth industry that you run out of your trailer in New Mexico.
No. It should be the Republicans who should be standing in the way, especially in the Senate, because the Senate is the one place where
The Senate is the one place where Republicans are disproportionately recognized and create genuinely a situation of taxation without representation. Because Wyoming, of course, has 2 senators, so does California. I rest my case.
Republicans can actually stop these radical bills and stop this attack on our Constitution and on our freedoms. But we have a problem in the Senate. You see a lot of our Republican senators cave. And there is one particular Republican
Oh, this one. Who is it?
senator that has been elected in Congress here in Washington, D.C. for 27 years.
Mitch no, it's not him. He's been in there longer, I think. Who is somebody terrible? Somebody, Mitt Romney, somebody they hate. A rhino, somebody that has been insufficiently loyal. It's Lindsey Graham, I bet.
And this one, well, you know him well. His name is Senator Lindsey Graham.
Didn't take much.
Sometimes we love him and sometimes we hate him. He seems to have a split personality.
Or it might be that you're a simpleton and you only respond positively to things that, oh, never mind.
But right now, I have a particular problem with Senator Lindsey Graham.
Mm-hmm.
You see, here's my issue.
Over salivation from too many supplements.
He tweeted out that he is willing to go ahead and vote for every single gun control measure the Democrats have because he wants to help his good buddy, Joe Biden. Can you go ahead and put that tweet up on the screen?
Yeah, let's see the tweet that says, I, Lindsey Graham, am willing to vote for everything. Well, didn't they shoot, I'm sorry, somebody's saying, we got a super chat from Brian says, hey, take it easy on New Mexico. I only made that reference, Brian, because that's where they filmed Breaking Bad. That's 100%.
Screen for me.
Here it is. This is Lindsey Graham, we're about to see it. Lindsey Graham's tweet where he said, I'm going to vote for anything the Democrats put forward to help my good buddy Joe Biden. I don't know why she's even putting it up. I stand ready to vote on all proposals mentioned by President Biden tonight and encourage the Democratic leader to bring them forward for votes. All the proposals mentioned by President Biden, not all the Democratic ones, but the ones he brought up specifically, which were the bipartisan ones. Okay. And encourage the Democratic leader to bring them forward for votes.
Here he is, Lindsey Graham, June 2nd.
One of two. I also stand ready to work across the aisle to find common ground, something that was absent from President Biden's address to the nation.
2022. I stand ready to vote on all.
Vote on all of them.
All caps, all the proposals mentioned by President Biden tonight and encourage the Democratic leader to bring forward.
He didn't say vote yes.
Vote.
No, that's typical. You want to talk about typical slimy Lindsey Graham.
Then the second part of the tweet, I also stand ready to work across the aisle to find common ground. Something that
there is no common ground. We live on deadly ground. Steven Seagal
was absent from President Biden's address to the nation. Here's the problem.
Here's the problem. There is no quarter, okay? We need all these weapons in case the revenuers decide to come out to our farm and stop us growing meth trees.
Here's the major problem. Why would we have a Republican senator from South Carolina ready to go to vote on radical gun control bills that are going to hurt the very people that voted for him and put him in office?
Well, I think that, oh my God, Audrey, thank you so much. Audrey Wellham for the super chat. You're amazing. Thanks so much. Oh my gosh. That's really lovely. Now I can't tell my kid we need to wait to pay for the game upgrade that he wants. Make sure no one mentions that to Camden. But you could. Thank you so much, Audrey.
You see, South Carolina's not a blue state.
No. And we're not America, okay? We're the United States of Civil War. Get it fucking straight.
Oh, South Carolina is a red state. There's a lot of gun owners in South Carolina.
Yeah, there's a lot of gun owners in Vermont, too.
And they are not going to be
There's a lot of gun owners in California.
Very happy with the
yeah, there should be a distinction, I think. Not all gun owners are lunatics who want schools shut up. I don't know what the percentage is. According to Marge, it's like 4/5. I'd say it's 1/36,000th.
Senator that they elected and sent to Washington, D.C. to represent their values.
One of their values seems to be they don't want to live in a war zone. They want to be able to defend themselves if it comes to it, but they don't want to live in, basically like South Carolina's version of Yemen.
To defend their freedoms and protect their gun rights and uphold the Constitution. They're not going to like it very much when he's up here helping Joe Biden pass his communist agenda.
Is there some sort of Marxist like to each a shotgun according to his needs?
And go ahead and destroy their Second Amendment rights. No, they're not going to be.
No, sir. No, ma'am. No, whatever you are, Mr. Lindsey Graham. No, okay. That is not the America. The purpose of the Constitution was written so that Americans could walk around in a constant Mexican standoff after the war with Mexico and still ongoing, so that we just basically everybody walks around, put it down in the basket. You did not pay for that paper bag. You did not paper bag. Put it down. Sir, using credit card, that machine is not working. Sir, that machine is not working. This is a cash only aisle. Ma'am, please. We have a limit on Otter Pops. What are you pointing that gun at me? Ma'am, do you know where the baked goods are? Sir, I am helping 2 other customers. At this point, you will have to wait a moment. Yeah, I just need to know. I got 2 things picking up, and I got some frozen stuff in the basket, and I just want to. Is the bread in the other aisle fresh, or is that the 2 days? Sir, please. I didn't mean you put that down.
very happy about that at all.
Yeah, life at gunpoint. That is the yeah, auto pops. It's pronounced otter pops, sir. You want an auto pop? Start lipping. Start lipping some more. Okay? Okay? Sorry, I'm on break right now. Y'all are gonna have to. Jerry, can you come over, please? Yeah, absolutely. Y'all, this is my scatter gun, so I pretty much got y'all covered.
At all. And that's where I have a problem. Here's why.
This is why you have a problem.
We're going to talk
Let's start at your marriage now.
about one of the bills that's coming through, the Protect the Children Act, that the Democrats are bringing to the floor this week in Congress. And
yeah, this Protect the Children thing will also protect adults. And that is outside the scope of the bill, okay? More overreach from the deep state.
House, we're going to be voting on these bills.
Can you put the fucking tweets down now, dum-dum? We've seen them. They're still...
We're going to have a whole slew of gun control.
Know what? I take it back. Can you take these tweets and move them this direction, just about 2 inches?
Activists who are trained, who are funded, and who are coming to Washington, D.C. this
Yeah, but they're all in the Mexican caravan, so they won't be here for weeks.
week. They will be crawling all over the Capitol, coming to my office, coming to many people's offices to explain why.
Well, the nice thing is, you know what? The good part is unlike the Capitol rioters, they won't be armed. None of them are going to have a gun. That's the one good thing about being picketed or badgered by anti-gun activists, is that many of them are pacifists and none of them are armed.
Why Americans should lose their Second Amendment rights, to explain why your right to bear
Well, you wouldn't lose your Second Amendment rights. It would have a natural limit. You can't have a nuclear weapon either. Can't have a howitzer.
arms, your right to own a gun, your right to own an AR-15, your right to have as much ammunition as you want to protect you.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, how much ammunition you have is a point of, conversation. But the idea, if you're stockpiling it, it's completely reasonable that in a well-regulated militia, the state, local, or federal authorities might want to, hey, man, yeah, we noticed that you have bought 60,000 rounds of 5.56, a shit ton of 22s, and a lot of 9mm shells. Like, what is it, Gary? It's like 72,000 rounds. We also noticed that you, according to your credit card receipts, which we bought, we didn't, we haven't been tracking you or anything. This is all for sale. You checked the box, so can you blame us? It says, basically, your consumer rundown is that you don't go anywhere, you don't have any friends, and the last thing you purchased that wasn't a gun was a fleshlight, and a paper mask that looks like Judge Janine. And we were just wondering why.
Yourself and your family, or God forbid, anyone else, if someone is attacking you or trying to hurt others. No, they don't want you to have that right. And then unfortunately we have...
Well, sure they do. What the fuck do you need an AR-15 to defend yourself in that circumstance? Again, even Kyle Rittenhouse, everything that happened to him, he could have defended himself with a handgun. He fired less than 5 shots. And if he hadn't been carrying the AR-15 and had a handgun on him like Grosskreutz did, the odds of someone attacking him or making a target out of him would have been lower anyways.
Our Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
Yes, please. By the way, fuck, man, I keep forgetting to bring popcorn for these moments.
Doesn't think you deserve that right either. Now, here's what I want to point out. I want to show you what he's been talking about a lot lately.
What's he been talking about a lot lately?
Lindsey Graham
Yeah.
Doesn't think you deserve that right either.
He doesn't.
Now, here's what I want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show you what he's been talking about
Yes, what's he been talking about?
a lot lately. Can we pull up his Twitter feed? Is that possible?
No, it's not possible. I'm sorry. We just had it up, but we can only do it once a show because he filed an injunction against us.
You see, I would think that a United States senator would be very interested.
I would think that a member of the House would have the production capability, considering they have a staff. This is pissing me off. You're definitely using OBS or something to put this shit on screen. You definitely have the ability to transfer from one camera to another. You don't even have to. You can just frame the camera differently. Stupid. This is a mess. I'm sorry. It just upsets me, okay? Okay? How can you... I mean, we expect a certain level of competence from her and the people...
in the United States, especially when we have so many major problems going on. Women, moms and dads, grandparents.
Women, moms, and dad. Women moms, women dads, and women grandparents.
People that are caring for babies under the age of 1
Uh-huh.
can't find baby formula.
Yes, they can.
But unfortunately, here we have Senator Lindsey Graham is more interested in Ukraine. And there's one key thing that he's most interested in. It is making sure that they have enough weapons, that they have enough guns, that they have enough ammunition to defend themselves from Russia, who has invaded their country, and there's a war over there. Now,
Wait, when did this start? Is anybody... Oh, shit. There's a war over there? Also, hey, dipshit, do you know the difference between an elementary school and a war zone? They want to send them guns over to defend themselves. They don't consider them assault weapons in those situations. Yes, they do. Those people are under assault. There is a current assault going.
he is committed. I mean, if you scroll through his Twitter feed,
The nerve.
it is nonstop making sure that he can make that. It's all about sending money, sending help to Ukraine. Okay, you can go ahead and take that down.
Yeah, I don't need to see that. It's terrible.
He wants
Because there's a bunch of things where he's deriding Joe Biden and shitting on Democrats, and it cuts against my argument.
to make sure that American tax dollars, listen, while you at home are working so hard every single day at your job and making sure that you pay your taxes, that you dot your I's, you cross your T's, he wants to make sure that your tax dollars are helping people in Ukraine to defend themselves. But he
In a war.
stands ready to vote for all of Joe Biden's gun control bills.
Well, no, vote on them.
He's ready to go, ready
Yeah, I don't trust that he's a man of his word.
to vote yes on that. Now,
No, it didn't say that. Stupid.
don't forget, this is the same senator, Republican senator, that's been one of those in the Senate that has also voted to confirm all of Joe Biden's picks for his administration.
The nerve.
He doesn't really have a problem with the people that Joe Biden picks.
Yeah, did you see the black lady? They did a black lady. There was the black lady.
He goes ahead and votes them on in. Remember when President Trump could hardly get any of his people confirmed?
No, no one remembers that.
Yes, Democrats stood in the way and tried
No, they didn't.
to block every single one.
No, they did not.
Well, Lindsey Graham's not doing that. He's helping his friend that he served in the Senate
Again, like, that's just goofy. Like, it's not even remotely true.
with for years and years. He's helping him and making sure that Joe Biden gets his people put in place so they can radically destroy the United States of America.
Oh, God. Oh, she's getting signaled from somebody else over here. Move on.
I don't think that's what a Republican senator from South Carolina should be doing.
Well, then you should run for Senate in South Carolina then. Good luck.
So let's get back to the little story.
Oh, the little story. Gather round. I'm already bored, but
I want
let's
to tell you guys a story.
Okay, let's. Good. Should I loosen my belt?
Now, in 2019, I went to Washington. And the reason why I went to Washington is because I was upset just as a regular American.
It was a regular QAnon.
I was not involved in politics. I did not hold office. I was not running for office.
Yeah, but that is in America. You don't have to run for office or hold a seat in office to be involved in politics. That's kind of the point.
I was just a person just like you. Many
Excuse you?
of these people, many of you watching this right now. And the reason why I went to Washington is there was a certain bill going through the Senate Judiciary Committee. They were
comes.
having a hearing, and it was about red flag laws. It was about red flag gun.
Holy shit. This is what drove her to it? This was the last straw for Marge Green, was red flag laws?
And confiscation
That's like thought police.
laws. And it was a particular bill that was going through. And I went there because I wanted to tell our senators, I wanted to tell as many of them as I could, that as a gun owner, as a woman, as a business owner, as a mother, my gun rights are extremely important to me. And I was asking all of them to vote no in 2019.
So that more mothers and women who own businesses and work like me could be killed by their former partners, because red flag laws, more than any other category, will affect domestic violence murders. And I had to stop that in its tracks.
To this red flag gun
Yeah, I know. This June 9th. That's the last one she posted.
confiscation bills. Now,
But this was her special news.
the reason why I was doing that, and you need to know something about me, is
don't.
the Second Amendment is extremely important to me.
Right. She loves anything she barely understands.
And it's important to me because when I was 16 years old, when I was in 11th grade, at my high school, which was a gun-free zone, by the way, and it had become so because of the Democrats' policies, thank you, Joe Biden, that made our schools gun-free school zones.
In Georgia? That's not because of Joe Biden.
One of my schoolmates brought 3 guns to school in a duffel bag, brought them on the school bus in the morning, came to school, and carried that duffel bag into his first period class. That student had brought 3 guns to school that day to kill other students, and it is a tragic, horrible shame. Now, what happened is our entire school went on lockdown. We were terrified. We had never been through anything like this before. And the scariest thing that my friends and I talked about in our classroom while we
were hunkered down was, I wish I had brought a gun myself to school so that, oh God.
We were being told we could not leave our classrooms. There was another student on the loose with guns. We were talking to each other about who is protecting us. If he has guns, who are the good guys that have guns? Does our principal have guns?
They call the police, and the police show up and do this. Now, again, in most places that aren't Texas, this actually works.
Do our coaches have guns?
No, your coaches do not have guns. They barely remember to wear underwear when they're wearing gym shorts.
Is there a security officer in our building that has guns?
I don't know.
Does our teacher have guns?
Would have been better if you knew they had guns before this situation.
Guess what the answer was? No one had guns.
And nobody got shot.
The only person in my high school that day was the very upset, mentally ill, out of control
kid who red flag laws would have stopped him from having access to those guns? You mean the kid that brought guns to school that everybody knew was crazy, but at that time they did not have red flag gun laws to stop kids like him from getting fucking hell?
deranged teenager who was upset, so upset that he had brought 3 guns to school that day to kill other students.
Right. Well, that's why people bring guns places, to kill people. Some of them say it's in defense, but, that's why you bring them. Also, what?
He was the one that had the guns.
Right. Understood. And then a red flag law would have stopped him, and then no one at your school, you wouldn't have even thought about this.
And guess what that meant? He controlled every single thing that happened from that time on once he pulled those guns out.
Which would have been true if your teacher had a gun and he knew it, and you knew that, like, if every student like you knew that the teacher had a gun, he would have walked in and gone, "Hi, Miss Clara," blam, and shot them, and then held the class hostage and had 2 guns. 4 in this case. Fuck is the point?
Here's what I learned that day.
More guns are better.
Now,
Always.
I learned this.
Teenagers should know where all the guns are at all times.
I never want to be in a situation where the only person in control is a madman with guns. That is the most dangerous situation But that is the situation that Democrats, Joe Biden especially with his gun-free school zones, have put our children in all over the country for years now.
Oh, for fuck's sake. There was an armed school resource officer in Uvalde. The police are like 8 minutes away. The dude was walking around in front of the place for a half an hour.
And this needs to end. And this is why I'm extremely upset about this. Every single person.
Because you're dumb and nihilistic and self-involved. And you think the whole world filters through you. And you believe that you should be the tyrant.
In this country is upset about school shootings. They should never happen. Never, ever happen.
Right. And a red flag law would lower that number specifically.
No child should be a sitting target at their school.
Right. And there is zero ways of stopping that circumstance. Like if every teacher had a gun and every classroom was a room with a door you could lock, what the fuck are the other teachers going to do once you're holding a classroom, you know, and shooting people and holding, like shooting kids and holding the rest of them hostage? What happens? What, do they just shoot through the door, shoot you, and just clip a couple other kids in the process? What we have to do is just gack the world up into crossfire all the fucking time. And anybody who suggests that there was a solution preemptively to the circumstance you are pointing out, which would have been the red flag law, which is exactly what brought her to DC in the first place, shows exactly who this human being is.
And no parent should ever have to know the fear of dropping off their children at school, not knowing
which teacher was a pedophile who could kill them, or which teacher was on the verge of committing suicide and just decided to take some kids with him and had been given a gun by the state. By the way, because can I remind you that the armed teachers crowd are the same people telling you that, you know, the teachers are groomers or that they're trying to murder kids or lure them into sex. Like, now they've got a gun to do it too.
if some student or some madman with a gun is going to come in there and kill their children, kill the teachers, or kill anyone in the school. That should never be a fear that we have in the United States of America.
Right. So remove all the guns from everybody, and then draconian laws for anybody who tries to sell one illegally. But no, that's not what you were talking about? Because that's really the only way you could actually do that. That's really the only way you could guarantee that never happens, is to remove everyone's gun.
And I'll tell you why. It's because we have the Second Amendment. We have the right to bear arms.
Right, you have the right. But with that comes a responsibility. And in the window of responsibility versus right, you basically have said that the right supersedes any responsibility about it. So you can't sue the gun manufacturers or who advertises the thing, kind of Joe Camel style. You can create all kinds of loopholes where straw purchases happen in all these shitty little like red state enclaves. Like you want to be able to buy and sell AR-15, piece by piece on fucking eBay.
We should never fear for our children's safety at school. And shame on anyone that made that possible. Because
you did.
Because I know that fear, and it was the worst fear. When I came out of my school, I have to tell you, the first person I saw was my father. He was the first person I locked eyes with.
And he was the first person I locked eyes with. He was armed.
And the look in his eyes of sheer terror, he was so upset. But when he saw me, the relief that I saw when he hugged me, that I could just feel it in his arms. He was so relieved because he thought that I could die in there.
Right. And thank God, while he was worried about a single shooter with multiple guns that might have been in one place, he didn't have to worry about you dying in crossfire.
All these parents outside the school thought that their children could die in that school.
And if only every kid had a gun. Jesus Christ, what is this?
Here's what happened. Luckily, we were the lucky ones. But since that time and so many other occasions.
Hold on. From a Yahoo News article, she appears to be citing a 1990 incident at Forsyth County High School in Georgia, where an armed student held other students from two classrooms hostage. No one died in the incident. Sorry, oops, it moved. And students in other classrooms were evacuated and bused to a nearby elementary school. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, yes, she attended South Forsyth High School and was present at the school that day, but she was not in the 2 classrooms that were taken hostage. Right? Yeah, no, she was nearby. I mean, it's like, me and my buddy Johnny Million and Lori Dan. We were at school the day she was headed towards our school, and we were on lockdown because she'd killed people, and there was an idea that she was walking down Green Bay Road and she was going to come to the school.
There have been children murdered, teachers murdered, other people at schools murdered by someone that couldn't control themselves, and
Right, and had access to a gun.
They pulled the trigger.
Oh, they just pulled it. It was just magically, it appeared in their hand. And there was no interrupt between this person's mental issues that everybody was well aware of, especially through like modern social media posting, but even beyond that, shrinks and parents and all that kind of shit. There's the occasional surprise, but even still, a red flag, and making it harder for someone under 21, like deeper background checks for someone under 21 to get a gun, which if you're a law-abiding citizen and you're balanced and normal, you shouldn't have a problem with. That's where they're leaning.
Should never, ever happen. There have been too many studies, too many plans put in place that people know how to stop it. And that is the only thing that Congress should be working on this.
Yeah, they know how to stop it. Just stop it before it happens, especially with young people under the age of 18.
Week is how to stop people from being able to kill kids in school. Now, let me tell you, that does not involve gun control. That involves protecting our kids with guns.
Oh God. Just I suppose part of it is that, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing. But this is just fucking goofy. We do not need, no society, none, not a one, needs children going to school, and the only reason they feel safe is because the principal, the vice principal, and the teachers are armed to the fucking teeth, and certain students or parents have been given guard duty to stand outside against the threat from their own neighbors. Especially when most of those threats, especially, 80% of them, can be handled by red flag laws.
And so here we have these gun bills that the Democrats are bringing forward. They do not do anything to stop crazy people.
Yes, they do.
Stop mentally ill.
Yes, they do.
People from obtaining a weapon.
Yes, they do. That's exactly the point of the bills that you are there to protest against. Fuck, this is dumb.
Any kind of weapon. It could be a gun. It could be a knife.
Oh, we need some laughter. CSL just posted the Debbie Mules thing. Okay.
It could be a car. They could make a bomb.
Oh, fuck off. Most people who make bombs, by the way, blow themselves to smithereens. It could be a car. Yeah, I'm really worried about somebody driving into a school and doing donuts in there for hours while, put down the fender and come out with your hands up. Shut the, what?
It could be anything that they...
Yeah, it could be, they could be armed to the teeth. I think all guns should be converted to do this. And it should be actual farts. And you can have them, the highest setting would be silent but deadly. But even then, you'd have to have a permit. All right, I'm done with her. This is the kind of idiocy one would expect from somebody who's like, what we need is, if only the vice principal had a mortar. Yeah, that'd be a blast in class. It totally would. This is exactly what this is. I would have gotten busted for smuggling this into school. All right, so let's get to some Jan 6, shall we? I don't know why I felt the need to cover MTG, but there we go. Obviously, Rudy was on ban and basically running interference for the fact that the Jan 6 committee aired footage of him and his testimony where he's like, just give me the ballots. I'll prove that they were all. But everybody's like, the inebriated Rudy Giuliani giving Trump advice on election night. He was drunk in his testimony. I can't wait to see more of that stuff. But his take, and I'm sure there's an ad here. Sorry. The truth nobody is telling about the U.S. economy. What? That it's supply shock and it's not true inflation and we're headed towards a liquidity and deflation crisis? Never mind.
Let's go to Rudy.
Let's not.
Rudy, they started an hour late. You got Liz Cheney up there pontificating.
They started an hour late because one of the witnesses' wives had a baby.
If you had the opportunity, it would take you probably a day, right, to go through all the.
I'm sorry. He just looks like Grandpa's still dialing in on Facebook. Hello?
Different states. And we got Christine Caramo in Michigan on hold. She's coming up next. We got Fincham. We got Marchant. We got Mastriano. We got everybody in East. Give me the highlights, Rudy.
Yeah, just wrap it up. Put it in a sweet little.
The highlights in Pennsylvania are twofold.
Twofold. Okay, two things. Pennsylvania. Here we go. Twofold. One, black people. Two,
767,000 ballots counted in Philadelphia, in the most crooked city in the United States. A guy just went to jail for election fraud 2 days ago. 700.
Did he now? For a local race?
6 ballots were counted without a Republican getting a chance to observe the ballots.
Bullshit. There were one of each, and the Republicans wanted a bunch of their people in there also doubling up and tripling up, and like they were all crowding like fucking fish in a tank. No.
Now, this becomes particularly acute when you think that Trump was ahead by 750,000. This narrowed his lead to about 100,000, and then they kept counting for 2 more days.
Yeah, that's the problem with votes is when people count them.
In all of that time, a Republican never got to look at a piece of paper.
Bullshit.
Unheard of in counting absentee ballots.
Still to this day.
The law requires they be observed.
They were.
Now, why would they shut out Republicans from 760,000 ballots?
They didn't.
Because the paper was inadequate.
Well, inadequate. I wouldn't say that about paper made in China out of panda jizz and bamboo. Come on.
The paper was obviously pre-produced.
Yes. Obviously, this is not freshly made paper.
Some of it signed by a machine.
Signed by a machine. They had a signature machine. Laszlo Holyfeld was behind the entire thing. Thanks, Jonathan.
Some of it with no other ballots on it. And the net result was of that vote, Biden got something like 98%.
Of a hugely democratically leaning district. What are the odds?
So, clear evidence of fraud in other.
No, not clear evidence.
Elections, those votes would all be taken out.
Bullshit.
And Trump would have won, just based on Philadelphia.
No. Also, they canvassed, they recounted, all those votes count. What they're saying is that they create this artificial idea that because these extra Republicans that were trying to bully their way into these areas, and those people said, I wanted to be an election observer and I wasn't allowed in there, the inference they allow to be made is that no one was in there. There were people already in there. We've covered this.
By the way, to the tune of 7,000 additional votes in Pittsburgh. And then.
Yeah, 7,000 though. That's.
We go to 2,000 mules as separate corroboration.
Really? He's actually citing 2,000 mules?
They say Philadelphia was the worst of all the places they observed.
Wait a minute. They do? My goodness. And they're so serious.
More phony ballots, more drop-offs, more payoffs.
None of which they show. Not once. In 2 fucking hours.
And they have Philadelphia, Trump winning by well over 100,000. Remember.
Yeah, he was totally going to take Philadelphia. I mean, it's his kind of city.
With 65% of the vote cast, he was ahead by 800,000. And we had scientists ready to testify.
Scientists?
That it was impossible.
Huh.
absolutely impossible to change that vote.
Well, no. With 600,000 votes cast, with 65% cast, he was at 800,000 ahead. That's true if you were talking about rural counties in Pennsylvania. But we're not. We're talking about the two biggest population centers where 80% of their vote was yet to be counted. Which, again, watch when people give you a percentage versus a baseline number. This is the oldest fucking bait and switch.
Without cheating. Well, they cheated, and there's multiple proof of it. And 2,000
No, there isn't.
mules puts the icing on the cake.
No, it doesn't. It, as a matter of fact, it leaves the cake out in the rain. And I don't think that I can make it because it took too long to bake it, and I'll never see that recipe again. Oh, no.
Same thing in Georgia. In Georgia, you have a film that you can look at.
But don't look at all of it.
Which they falsely claim that I doctored, which I never touched, never saw, never had anything to do with until it was played. But they didn't know that. They just lied about it.
No, they didn't. You only played a segment of it in your testimony. They didn't say it was doctored. It was saying that they said specifically you took that out of context and removed the contextual video from it to make you take a piece and make it look incendiary. Now, that is precisely what you're doing, except in a more ham-handed, dumb way.
That film alone shows.
Yeah, it's not film, too. It's video. Good point.
120,000 ballots that were being counted illegally. They deliberately threw out all of the inspectors, created a phony water main break, which
that's the next day, not even the same time frame.
It's been proven to be phony. And we have independent video of that.
No, you don't.
And Raffensperger claims he sent somebody there. He never did. And people should know that Raffensperger also had a report.
Raffensperger?
6 days into the election from his own people.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how you can trust any Republican. I mean, I think really your only recourse, Rudy, is to make sure no Republican ever gets elected in the state of Georgia ever again. Because how are you ever going to be sure that he hasn't arranged for some sort of massive, oh yeah, I believe it, massive voter fraud?
There was massive fraud in the election.
Look at that.
Every time that liar got up and said the election was perfect, his own people had told him it was one of the worst elections ever.
No, they didn't.
And they nominated him again to.
Yes. That's what they did. They told him it was one of the worst ever, and they nominated him again. Fucking hell.
Be a crooked attorney general. It's a shame. And
it is a shame. Maybe oh, I see. So maybe the goal of all the Republicans in that state was to make it the most crooked ever. Maybe Kemp is planning on running for president, and his only way to do that is if Trump loses so that he can, oh, shit. And I have no popcorn.
He's the one who picked Dominion, by the way. Big story to that, which we'll go into at the right time.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know that Real America's Voice is being sued currently by Dominion, so anytime. Go ahead.
Michigan, you got more people voting than live, just about.
No.
Michigan, they
just about lovely.
Just closed down the center. Same thing as in all the other places. They close it down at 11 o'clock. Nobody's allowed in. At 3 in the morning, 2 garbage trucks come in with 100,000 ballots.
It takes 2 garbage trucks for 100,000 ballots? It's sheets of paper, fucko. It's like the size of a trunk.
More. There was 2 Republicans that stayed behind. They hid.
Yes, they hid.
After they were thrown out.
Okay, so they're the trustworthy ones. So let me get this straight. During an election, people are asked to leave the election facility so it can be locked down overnight until the counting will resume in the morning. And the only people we know for sure had broken the law and hung around in the facility were Republicans. And so I guess I'm going to guess that they met those garbage trucks full of Trump ballots. And helped guide them in, and then.
And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Oh God, what's her name? Tina. What's her name?
And they say that those ballots, every time they heard a name, all those ballots were for Trump, and they did not appear to have come from a voting station since they came in a garbage truck.
Oh, well, here we go. Shit. Rudy Giuliani just told the story. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, you heard it right. That the two, according to Rudy Giuliani, for the record, run that by me again. 2 garbage trucks came in the middle of the night after 2 Republican operatives hung around in a center in Philadelphia.
Republicans that stayed behind.
Yeah, 2 Republicans stayed behind.
They hid after they were thrown.
They hid after they were thrown out. Illegally, they stayed in the facility.
Thrown out. And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Okay, so 2 Republicans and the Dominion temp, what's her name, who they ended up on SNL, and
they say that those ballots,
every
time they heard a name, all those ballots were for Trump, and they did
up. Okay, stupid. Well, there's the cow. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been saying all along that in the same way that Steve Bannon fucks up every time by saying that it's, he calls it the hard drive from hell instead of the laptop from hell and blows the whole plan. That Rudy, not to be outdone by Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani has screwed the pooch and basically given away the entire thing. Now, we'll see if Bannon corrects him. He didn't certainly jump in, but yeah, this is, if Rudy accidentally told the truth, that's amazing. Yeah, toilet hooch is a mistake, especially if you're going to be on, you might need a stiff one like that to be on with Bannon. Let's run that again. Let's hear that whole clip.
At the right time. Michigan, you got more people. You got more people voting than live, just about.
Just about. I wonder where those extra ballots came from and who they could have been cast for in the election.
Michigan, they just closed down the center.
Yeah, they just closed down the center. So the Democrats closed the place down, allegedly, and everybody left except...
Same thing as in all the other places. They closed it down at 11 o'clock. Nobody's allowed in at 3 in the morning.
Nobody's allowed in at 3 in the morning.
2 garbage trucks.
2 garbage trucks show up.
Come in with 100,000 ballots or more.
With 100,000 ballots or more.
There was 2 Republicans that stayed behind.
There were 2 Republicans hiding and trespassing on election night in the center, okay, that was closed illegally. They were there.
They hid after they were thrown out.
2 Republicans, okay.
And one employee of Dominion who was shocked by what she saw.
Right.
And they say that those ballots, every time they heard a name.
Those ballots that were in that truck that arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning in a giant garbage truck while the Republican operatives hid in the building after everyone had been broomed out, where even security people could be in the building. And they looked on the ballot. Every time one of those ballots was read out loud, the name was...
All those ballots were for Trump, and they did not appear to have come from a voting station since they came in a garbage truck. And they couldn't have been mail-in ballots because they weren't folded.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, just to be clear, thanks, Rudy. Your Honor, we're going to rest right after this. Is it okay if I enter this piece of video evidence into the record on a fucking loop? Because this dum-dum Freudian slipped his way into telling the truth. Shit. So, according to Rudy Giuliani, officially at this point on June 13th, Monday of 2022, Trump tried to steal the election in Michigan and it dumped over 100,000 fake ballots into the election and still lost. Okay, so we should scrape out 100,000 votes for Trump in Michigan alone.
And that put
yeah. Now Bannon's going to fix it for him. You mean Biden? Votes for Biden.
The ballots were for Trump or for Biden?
Oh, the ballots were in a bucket, and they were for Biden. And a lot of them.
Oh, a bucket of Biden. Get a bucket of Biden, finger licking good. Get a bucket of lying, and come on, it's good. Just with some mashed potatoes. It's a Biden bucket for you. Jesus Christ. They were in a bucket. What? So the garbage truck showed up and they just bailed them out like water? No, they weren't nothing. Shit.
Hey, you just said stop. You just said Trump, so I want to make sure we're clear because the media is all over this thing.
Well, I should have said there were no ballots for Trump. There was a whole section of about.
Yeah, you should have said that, but you didn't. look at Bannon like this motherfucker.
22,000 ballots, none for Trump. I think
22,000. So 88,000 of them were for Trump? What the shit?
He ended up total something like 135,000 to 2,500. But these came from a garbage truck.
Yes, in a bucket. We understand.
Two garbage trucks.
Two garbage trucks.
They came in the back entrance in the middle of the night.
Well, that's how you do it.
In Atlanta, we see them going under a desk. It was covered all day, throwing out all the Republicans and then counting the ballots. And again, in each of these cases,
these were rotating boxes that had been there all day and were moved into position, and then they would have no way of knowing the content of those cases because they'd been moved all day. But never mind. Like at this point, we just have Rudy admitting that Trump had stolen the election in Michigan.
Technology of 2,000 mules demonstrates
the technology. They have blue screens. You don't understand? Okay. They have ways of looking at they had a whole it was like blacklist.
That there were way more than enough votes so that Trump had won the state. Arizona, exactly the same thing.
Yeah, if only 100,000 or so of Trump's votes in every state hadn't been fake, which we now know because of Rudy, he would have won. Yeah. The president pinned his career on this guy, right? Oops, hold on.
Arizona still is fighting allowing people to look at the paper ballots because they know the paper ballots are phony.
Well, the Trump ones are, and it's run by Republicans, and they don't want to be caught. They helped him as much as they could, but he still lost, so they're just trying to cover their tracks. It's kind of like the manager of a bank, participated in the heist by, telling you guys like when the security guard goes on his break and where he's going to be and leaving one of the doors open and shit like that. And then the robbery happens and somebody gets killed. And then these guys get all shot up when they're leaving and a couple of them escape. And one of them meets back at his house later on and goes, "You got to help me. Otherwise I'm going to, I'm going to turn you in." And he shoots that guy and says, "This guy tried to follow me home," or whatever. That's that. I mean, it's basically that.
Our observers were too far away.
Our observers were too far away.
And they've got the Fincham and Kerry Lake are both in court on an injunction to get the machines.
Yeah, it'll work. They're going to try and stop electronic voting in the state of Arizona.
Rudy,
which, by the way, every elected Republican in Arizona should step down because obviously these machines cannot be trusted, and none of them should feel secure that their getting elected was a reflection of the will of the voter.
We got to get Bernie, I get all these others.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to keep talking to you, but you keep fucking up really simple things, so I got to move on.
Secretary of State's jammed up. I know you're all over Andrew's campaign. You're traveling everywhere. What's your social media so people can follow you nonstop?
So they can follow you nonstop.
On what's happening, Andrew. The debate's tonight. We're going to be giving commentary in a pregame. I think we're going to try to get Andrew on here in the afternoon show. So, how do people follow you to follow this intense
plug anything you want
race for the Republican nomination for governor in New York?
Best way to follow me is RudyGiulianiCS.com. RudyGiulianiCS.com. I've got my podcast. My podcast today are on the films that they didn't show at the January 6th committee, including the Antifa participation in January 6th, which is documented and left out, and the single biggest violator who's.
And by the way, the Antifa guy that's documented being left out is allegedly one of the guys who was filming stuff, who like embedded himself with him and wasn't in line with like the Proud Boys and those guys, but was following along and filming. You know, he's Antifa. You know, like Andy No is trans.
Gone free, and the single biggest crime which is being covered up, which is the murder of Ashley Babbitt. We show a new video of the Ashley Babbitt murder that we had but hadn't shown in over a year.
Yes, we all saw it.
In which it is clear that she's been lifted up as a target to be shot.
You know, which never would have happened if she was blocks away and not in front of a window that was being bashed out trying to get there. Do you think they could have lifted her up and put her through there if she didn't want to be put through that window? What the fuck?
She was a threat to no one.
Yes. By the way, Rudy, if you don't mind, I would like to walk into any secure event that you or your son is having with a backpack and no one's allowed to look in it. Please tell me that at all your events, you make sure that anyone who brings a backpack in, no one checks it, because that would be a violation.
There were 8 cops around that could have subdued her, instead of murdered her. And this one guy shoots her. And John Sullivan, who is already indicted, incited a riot where a murder took place, deliberately keeps the face of the cop out of the video. It was clearly a staged video by a guy very close to Antifa.
Wow, it's amazing. Like, in the middle of all that mayhem, they were able to get perfect angles.
All of that is fact. All of it ignored.
This is like somebody arguing that Zapruder was a CIA op.
By these, I would say, criminals who are running this hearing, because they're covering up a homicide in order to do the same thing they did, and that is frame Trump for something he didn't do. This is no different than Russian collusion.
It's no different than Russian collusion, which is that there's a shit ton of evidence for it, and every time they start showing the evidence, we start crying foul and calling it a hoax and bullshitting.
Every dog will have its day,
and it's Rudy's day.
Our day is going to be November 8th, and then when we take over, we're going to have a real investigation and hold people liable for what they're doing. Okay, Rudy Giuliani, thank you. Honored to have you on here. Great summary, overview.
Great summary. Oh, God.
And good fight tonight with Andrew, who's been blocked because
I'm looking forward to it.
He did not take the vax, and at the last second they kick him out. They don't want Andrew Giuliani. Once he becomes governor of New York, he's firing the DA, which the New York Post called for today in their editorial over the weekend. He's firing the DA. He's going to put emergency measures over top of Adams to get control of New York City, because New York City's out of control. Let's go to
Jesus Christ. All right. By the way, most of what Rudy is constantly saying in these situations is on a loop, and they're trying to take the evidence that has already been debunked dozens of times and hope that there's sort of a Gish Gallop like fatigue that people have with pushing back on it. And I certainly feel it. John Sullivan's the fake Antifa guy. Well, hold on. Yeah, this would be, hold on. The guy that they're talking about here is fact check, misleading claim about Antifa member at Jan 6 Capitol riot. This is the claim a known Antifa member was paid $70,000 for his video of the Capitol riot. Okay, so I don't know about the known Antifa part of it yet, but we'll see. Okay, cue a widely shared meme on Facebook featuring the office of Jim Halpern. This is a known Antifa member who was paid $70,000 for his Capitol riot video, Jan 6. Reads the text in the photo, which shows Halpern, played by actor John Krasinski, pointing to a whiteboard. The FBI says they have no proof Antifa members dressed as Trump supporters caused it. Okay. The meme, posted by a Facebook page called Happy Hayride, has more than 600 shares. Similar versions of the post have amassed tens of thousands of interactions on Facebook and Instagram, according to CrowdTangle, a social media insights tool. David Shell, a conservative meme maker on Instagram, originally published the image March 5th. The post features 2 photos of John Sullivan, a Utah activist who shot a video inside the Capitol during the riot. Sullivan was later arrested. Court documents show news outlets paid for the listed amount, $90,000. Okay, so let's just look into him, because that's really the key. Sullivan Earl, obstruction of official proceedings, civil disorder, entering, remaining in restricted building or grounds, disorderly disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in Capitol building, aiding and abetting. He's from Utah. Initial appearance at the District of Utah, 4 p.m. So they okay. And then Ripley originally posed the image. Mark Fez, Utah, who shot the video inside the thing. An old conspiracy theory. In the days immediately after thousands of Donald Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, some conservatives tried to scapegoat Antifa activists. Those claims didn't and don't stand up to scrutiny. Antifa, short for anti-fascist, refers to a loose coalition of left-wing activists who protest against white supremacy and far-right causes, sometimes using violence. Antifa is an ideology, not a single group. It has no leaders and is broken up into regional cells. In the past, Antifa activists have been wrongly blamed for murder, shootings, and even wildfires. It wasn't long after rioters breached the Capitol that some painted the attack on activists on Antifa activists as well. The conspiracy theory, which falsely claimed Antifa activists disguised as Trump supporters years ago by gaining weight and listening to nothing but Greenleewood, 24 hours a day for 7 days a week. Were responsible for the Capitol riot. Traveled from fringe internet sites to the floor of Congress within hours. Social media user falsely claimed facial recognition technology proved the theory, and that a supporter for the baseless QAnon conspiracy theater picture wearing horns inside the Capitol building was actually an Antifa activist. During his March testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee, FBI Director Christopher Wray said the Bureau hadn't seen any evidence of any anarchists, violent extremists, or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the 6th. Hundreds of videos show rioters brandishing pro-Trump, QAnon, far-right paraphernalia. Hundreds of federal charging documents. Where is it? Okay. Sullivan was paid but not affiliated with Antifa. News organizations paid Sullivan tens of thousands of dollars for his footage from the Capitol riot, but he has denied any affiliation with Antifa, and federal charging documents do not suggest he's linked to the movement. Court filings show U.S. authorities ordered Sullivan to forfeit about $90,000 he made from selling footage he took in and around the Capitol on Jan 6. His video captured the death of Babbitt, a military veteran from California whom police shot as she tried to force her way through a hallway inside the Capitol. Court release video from Jan 6 riots at the U.S. Capitol building. The total included 35. Okay, that's just the money. Let's see. But Sullivan is not a known Antifa member, as Facebook claims. Court papers in his criminal case do not mention him being affiliated with any anti-fascist groups. Blah, blah, blah. PolitiFact, an independent fact-checking organization, reported in January that Sullivan's social media accounts frequently used hashtags associated with anti-fascist and Black Lives Matter activists. He described himself as a Trump opponent and a supporter of Black Lives Matter movement. But Sullivan has repeatedly denied being associated with Antifa groups, and local Black Lives Matter groups in Utah have disavowed him, accusing him of being an agent provocateur. Our rating partly false. There we go. So that's the John Sullivan story. Which again, like, here's the thing. All right, let me get to this. I very, very seldom am I confronted with a clip where I can't find some sort of, like, silliness in it, and or I'm recognizing that when I see them, it's going to take work. And this one is from our dear friend Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy has so far been in the camp that Russia had every right to invade Ukraine because NATO made them do it, that they were doing it to denazify the place, that there are enough Nazis in Ukraine to justify all-out war by Russia on the country, period, end of story. And the Uyghur genocide did not happen in China, is not happening, is not ongoing. The re-education and concentration camps don't exist. That's all false. And that's pretty deep reads as far as denying stuff. When you start denying those kind of things, it's no surprise that he was on the Young Turks at one point, considering how Cenk used to be with the Armenian genocide, or arguably still is, depending on how you feel about the statement he finally brought himself around to make. But when I saw the name of this one, I was like, it set off alarm bells. Twitter censors anti-war journo over Tiananmen Square tweet. Now, I find it hard to believe that an anti-war journalist who wrote something about Tiananmen Square, that is legitimately that thing, that is literally an anti-war journalist, would write anything about Tiananmen Square that would get them censored on Twitter. Now, he's had Danny Haifong on a few times, the guy that he's talking about. And Haifong has been running interference against the story of the Uyghur genocide, the rape camps, the sterilizations, the slave labor, all that stuff. Like, just flat out saying it's not true, which is a lie, period. But I'm very curious, like, where they go with this, because I haven't seen his tweet, but I have a feeling that if it got censored in any ways, it's like a pro-CCP denial of the Tiananmen Square circumstances at all, like that tank guy doesn't exist or something.
Has appeared in such publications as
I think he's already talking about Danny, because I cut off the top because it's ads for his live.
Mint Press News, Counterpunch, and the American Herald Tribune for the last 5 years. He has also been a weekly.
By the way, Jimmy has Haifong on a lot, and yet he's reading. Oh, never mind.
Contributor to the Black Agenda Report. Please welcome Danny Haifong. Hi, Danny. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
So now something horrible happened to you. You tweeted this out, right? Now, your specialty is China.
His specialty is China.
And we've had you on the show to talk about China in the past. And this is from your just your Substack? Is that what this is? Or is this your Medium?
No, this is just a screenshot of the tweet because, Twitter forced me to delete it just for my countdown.
Oh, really?
But we can, yeah.
Every June 4th, Western propagandists remind us of the Tiananmen Square massacre to smear China. The truth? No massacre occurred on the square, and the violence that took place, I guess, in Beijing during that time was part of a failed color revolution backed by the United States. A thread.
We can
it's
get
loud.
to that.
So
But
here's
that's
the
actually
tweet.
to a thread.
You said
Right.
you tweeted this out. Every June 4th, Western propagandists remind us of the Tiananmen Square massacre to smear China. The truth? No massacre occurred on the square, and the violence that took place Beijing during the time was part of a failed color revolution backed by the United States. Now you tweeted that out.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that? Sorry, I didn't realize it was so. Yeah, I mean, straight up, it's one thing to, like, some people are new to the Uyghur storyline and maybe believe that Western media plays it up as a pivot point against China and might believe some of the talking points. But, like, Tiananmen Square is fucking settled history. People know what went on there. You're not even allowed to show the guy standing in front of the tank on Chinese social media. They are scrubbing the circumstance. Imagine if the U.S. government made it impossible for you to tweet or write or talk about Kent State, right? Or Tuskegee or something like that, which you aren't. Yeah, I tried to turn the volume down. I apologize on that. I don't know why it was a higher volume than the other one. Probably because we're jumping between sites and they set their volume at different ones. Yeah. So, and again, the idea that you're like, you just wrote that. All you wrote was that nobody was, students weren't murdered at Tiananmen Square. And and the ones that did had it coming. They were all backed by the United States. The U.S. created the Tiananmen Square massacre. Those people don't want freedom.
And they then did this to you. They said you violated their rules against abuse and harassment. You may not engage in targeted harassment of someone or incite other people to do so. So that doesn't make any sense. I thought they were going to say that you were denying a mass, like, murder or something, but you're...
That's essentially it. It says, like, Western propagandists remind us of the Tiananmen Square. The idea would be, I suppose, that the targeted group would be Western media.
They don't allow you to do on YouTube, I know, but that doesn't make sense, right there.
I think the first person somebody reported the tweet, and they probably did it under, that was the best one that described it. It's harassing people who are of Chinese descent who live in the United States, who know about Tiananmen, and denies their reality, and that kind of thing.
I mean, I guess there were many Western propagandists who were triggered because it's obvious that
it got reported.
That's the only thing in that tweet that could be targeted as such, as inciting harassment.
By the way, that when Jax was on, that was the other thing I told you, that we played that. I guess you're going to show that ad, and I missed it. Jackson, I can't believe they put that part, and I was so blown away that was a thing. I didn't know since I was a kid. I assumed. Well, are you about to show the video?
No, I don't have that. I don't know what video you're talking about.
It was a Go Army to join the information warriors, I guess.
Oh, I didn't see it. No, and
it's the most disturbing thing. I mean, I don't even know why they made it. But basically, they're showing how they do information warfare, and you could be part of it, like to join the army. And they show the tank going around the guy instead of running him over, which I guess had been cut out all the years I've heard of it.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, they know he didn't run him over. That was the point.
About it in the
he disappeared later.
Commercial. This is what we do. Like in the commercial, you know how crazy that is?
So
okay, hold on. Hold on. He's referencing that there's some sort of ad for the army that says, let's see, Go Army propaganda ad Tiananmen. What's your warrior? Let's see. Is there trying to find, like, it's supposed to be older, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe they'll call it up. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. It sounds like it's fake.
They put the Tiananmen Square thing with the tank and the guy in their propaganda video to show you this is the kind of
stuff that you could be a part of doing. Yes. Okay.
Oh, no. By the way,
it took me a minute to understand what he was telling me because that was so mind blowing to me that was even on video.
I met that guy.
The actual guy?
The guy who got his legs cut off. They said a tank ran him over.
Yeah.
I met that guy at the Oslo Freedom Forum. I interviewed him. I have that on video somewhere.
What did he say?
I interviewed a bunch of people like that, and then after I figured out what the Oslo Freedom Forum was, which was just a shield for imperialism.
What isn't, though? I mean, honestly.
I didn't air any of those interviews. I didn't.
No? You didn't think to maybe put them up in context that, I did this in the context of you could even run them now and go through them and go, here's what I was unsure about at this point. I believe this. Here's where I've changed my mind.
Want anything to do with them. And so, because they were all in
possible tornadoes in Chicago. Be careful, everybody.
They were using those people to further imperialism.
Just in general, just like, how are they with just like making them pass out like Bitcoin ads, or
and they would find victims and then they would say, oh look, we need to go bomb Yemen more and stuff like that.
Oh well, yeah, but the only reason we need to bomb Yemen is because it's full of Nazis. I mean, you can bomb them because they're full of Nazis, this is pretty obvious. Yeah, I mean, remember. Yeah, that's why you bomb Yemen, according to Jimmy, anyways.
And that's what the Oslo Freedom Forum, and that's who's that the chess guy?
The chess guy, Murray Head,
Gary Kasparov. Yeah, he's an imperialist.
Okay, well, at least it's a nice living.
Okay, so you go on to say, 3 years prior to the Tiananmen incident, George Soros had started an NGO, that stands for non-governmental organization.
Right. Not government. So you're saying it isn't the government. All right.
that had influence in Beijing called the Fund for Reform and Opening of China.
Mhm.
Key protest leaders and rioters were supported by Soros' org, and it was promptly closed following the unrest. So you're saying, Danny,
that anybody who is helping them kind of gain freedom from the communist overlords after that they were shut down, and okay, yeah, that happens every time you fail to overturn a dictatorship. That every
that
time.
George Soros, so
Yeah, it's Soros. I mean, it's Super Jew. Jesus. I mean, like, at this point, why aren't we straight up? I mean, why aren't we just watching Alex Jones?
with a lot of these things, like in Syria, people tried to pretend that it was the Arab Spring that led.
Well, I mean, in Syria, again, I don't want to bug you about this, Jimmy. But let's see. Let's see. I mean, there's a bit of a history. In Syria itself, and I suppose. Hold on a second. I suppose. Let's see. I mean, there's sort of an ongoing. The far right throws support behind the Syrian government and is accused of working. Okay. What else could it possibly be? Let's see. Yeah, here you go. And this is March 2021. We've covered most of these before, but I mean, if you're going to talk about Syria, under the Jimmy Dore doctrine of attacking Ukraine, Yemen and Syria, I mean, they all bets are off. You're allowed
to this overthrow of Assad, or this uprising that wanted to overthrow him. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. The people against Assad are
It was CIA called Timber Sycamore. They flooded billions of dollars into terrorists to go try to overthrow that guy. So,
yeah, terrorists, like anti-fascists, these anti-fascist terrorists who don't like the fact that the right wing in America and Italy and Germany and Hungary like Assad. And all right, it's just so stupid.
Now you're saying that,
like, I mean, the blanket ignorance of Jimmy about any of this stuff. Like, he can't look. He can't look, because if he finds out any of it, it shoots a major hole in his argument.
George Soros,
who is Jewish,
was doing.
And again, we'll remind you, Jimmy thinks that when Israel invades Palestinian territories because they think they have claim to it, and it's for their own security, and that is their reasoning, that they are monsters and must be destroyed. And when Russia does it to Ukraine, Russia is in the right and should be allowed to do so. And the only difference is Israel's is a Jewish state.
A similar thing. He was funding the people to go do protests in Tiananmen Square.
Yeah. Look, if you really want to protest, do you really need money? I mean, what do you got to eat for?
Yeah. So essentially, this was part, as you said,
Where did Bill Gates come in? That's what I want to know.
Part of an overall color revolution, similar to what we're seeing in the modern era, right? Post-Cold War.
What is a color revolution? Tell people what the color revolution.
Tell Jimmy what a color revolution is.
So a color revolution is a Western-backed, generally the U.S., because
because nobody else wants freedom and stuff. The European Union doesn't want any of this stuff. They just play footsie with it so they can sell wine and cheese to the world, beer.
It took off during this period at the fall of the Soviet Union, 1980s, into the current period. Over the last 40 years, there's been a lot of investment from U.S. NGOs primarily, because the U.S. is the big hegemon, but they have all the Western.
they're not. And Soros is not an American. He's Hungarian.
Allies, the UK, all the Western countries that kind of.
Yeah, just the West does these things. You know, the country that Jimmy lives in and lives under the protection of and can shit all over the government and his fellow citizens all day long with no repercussions. And if he did any of this shit in any of the countries that he decries as, or I guess extols as virtuous, more virtuous than we, if he set foot in them and said anything remotely like he says about the U.S. or U.S. citizens, he'd have been either drawn and quartered or caged forever.
Do the bidding of the United States on their side, and they essentially fund these NGOs. For example, the National Endowment for Democracy is one of the bigger ones, right?
Yeah. The Natural Endowment for Democracy. What a terrible. Dore's mic is heft. Yeah,
that funds
that's on
quote unquote
his
civil
end.
society groups, organizations,
Bellingcat.
media.
Bellingcat, evil Bellingcat.
Exactly. Bellingcat.
Yeah, fake media organizations that are just mouthpieces for the intelligence community.
Right, like you are for the GRU, I guess. I mean, what's the fucking difference? I mean, if you want to talk about direct talking points from a government straight through somebody's face, look no further than Danny Haiphong and the CCP and Jimmy Dore and the GRU and the FSB. It's just, I mean, it is 1-to-fucking-1. Look, hold on. RT. Let's just see. Let's see. What do they got here? EU has become the 51st U.S. state. Let's see. How Russian troops confronted NATO forces in Yugoslavia in a significant post-Soviet first. Yeah. Okay, hold on. U.S. economy major recession. New York spent big on drag show for kids, media. That's Jimmy's done a story about that as well. A risk of nuclear arms used in the highest in decades. That's why we shouldn't provoke them. Germany has planned to help prevent global famine. Let's see. Japanese yen slides to record low. He's not even talking. U.S. is trying to use Ukraine as a test lab for its drones, a move Russia is unlikely to forget. Rachel Marsden, top EU official used poorly sourced disinformation in an attempt to smear Russia at the UN. January 6th Capitol riot was not the real insurrection. Westerners are skeptical about their leaders, but not their anti-Russian narratives. That's because the people need to die because you're never going to get it out of there. Well, let's see. U.S. looks into deaths linked to baby formula. Oscar winner appeared in court on sex charges. That's where they yeah, what's his name? Is in UK. Private space company loses 2 more NASA satellites. All right. China trains its new security partner in the Pacific. That's nice of them. Biden shouldn't run again. Democrats tell New York Times. West should take Moscow's interest into account. Kissinger. Oh, look, they're quoting the same guy that he did. Pelosi accused of blocking questions. Makes sense. Russia accused the U.S. of concealing data on biolabs. That's another one. Foreign fighters in Donbass. CSTO allies. Is it down? Let's see more of them. Ex-general loses think tank role amid FBI probe. I don't know. Protesters oppose jet ban. Prince Andrew, Capitol insurrection deniers blame for inflation. What? Russian ace Medvedev recaptures world #1 spot. Okay, these are just other stuff. Basically, you'll find nothing that conflicts with what Jimmy's saying. And normally, anything that's coming out about the U.S. will be perfectly in line. Like, let's see. Ukraine, China, and stronger security ties. Pakistan, Zelensky vows to take Donbass. Oh, there. This is their front page. Hold on. Russia and former Soviet Union. There we go. Russia has crossed all lines. DPR. Zelensky vows to retake Donbass and Crimea. Ukrainian envoy berates Germany. Ukrainian mayor defects. 3 killed in Ukrainian shelling of market. There you go. This is what Jimmy says all the time. Ukrainian troops shelled the Maysky market in Donetsk on Monday, killing 3 people. Donetsk People's Republic officials have said. According to them, the number of wounded has reached 18. Yankagin, an advisor in the government of Donetsk, told reporters that a woman and a child were among those killed. City officials also reported that a hospital and a gas pipeline were damaged. That's weird. Gas pipeline. Wonder how where they would stack that on the level of importance, but next to woman and child. Local media said 10 rockets were launched at Donetsk from a Ukrainian-controlled area. Let me guess, a disputed area? All right. Russia, along with Donbas forces, Ukraine have repeatedly accused each other of shelling residential. Moscow insists that it only strikes military sites. On Sunday, Sergei Gaiday, a senior Ukrainian appointed official, said that Russian forces shelled the city of Lysychansk, also in Donbas, killing 3 people, including a 6-year-old boy. A senior said that Russian forces shelled the city of it. Russia attacked the neighboring state in late February following the... Oh, all right. So that's that's backwards. All right, good.
And they did it in China. There was something called the Chinese Intellectual, which the
Chinese Intellectual
NED funded at a tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars beginning in the 1980s to first spread to Chinese immigrants in the United States, professionals, those kind of folks. Then they switched in 1988, a year before the protests began, or before they really jumped off. They switched and started to spread the Chinese intellectual around China in order to infiltrate the universities and make them kind of hotbeds of unrest. And that's exactly kind of how the Tiananmen Square.
And so that's how you foment, that's how you create a natural uprising, right? And so they've been
by putting silly ideas in the people's heads that they should be able to determine their own lives.
Doing that. They did the same thing in Taiwan, right?
No.
What am I? Yeah.
Hong Kong?
Hong Kong?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's the difference?
I mean, Hong Kong, and there's a lot of U.S. influence in Taiwan, too.
No, I didn't mean, yeah, I meant, yeah, I got that mixed up.
Yeah, there's a lot of U.S. influence in Taiwan. It's why they have legalized gay marriage. It's why their businesses actually function. It's why they have an open society. It's terrible.
Why is it called a color revolution?
It's called the Color Revolution because oftentimes, I mean, there's a gentleman, Gene Sharp, who went to a program. He's an academic. He's known as kind of like a nonviolent protest guru.
Oh, yeah. Terrible.
He went to a program.
You know, somebody that would hang out with Ben Shapiro.
That's known as the CIA at Harvard, the Harvard International School. And he was trained by someone at the RAND Corporation, Thomas Meshinger, who came up with sort of a manual. They came up with a manual that showed how to generate nonviolent protests abroad in order to get regime change, right? To battle authoritarianism.
Yeah, what a terrible notion. What the fuck? Why don't we just bomb those fuckers? Why would you just use ideas to make people want to change or come up with their own? What the fuck? One would think you would be for this kind of thing.
And he actually was in China beginning, in 1989, right before the protests began. And he was actually monitoring the protests. There's some suspicion.
Yeah, he was calling in. Yes, they're moving out into the streets. Yes, tanks. Yes, it'll be great. Yes, nothing's happening. Yes, something's happening. Yes, something and then nothing. I'll let you know when nothing happens and something happens later.
That he was involved, but nonetheless, the Color Revolution is all about. It's kind of a code word for nonviolent protest for political ends.
Sounds horrifying. Now, what you have right now is Kurt's really confused. And Jimmy's really confused, and both of them are trying to figure out how they can make that bad. Nonviolent ways to stop authoritarianism. I hope Kurt has a joke that I can go, ha-ha, to that gets me out of this, because I've just realized how far on the wrong side of history I am, and how insane Danny Haiphong is for supporting this shit.
Generally, they turn violent
because the authoritarian governments don't want to be overturned.
Because nonviolent protests don't usually cause regime change without some kind of chaos and spark and some kind of disorder that can really bring down a government.
Yeah, but you're still marching to Jimmy's drum here. He's still on the side of that. He actually prefers the violent side of things. So Jimmy's trying to figure out how to not step right in the fucking middle of being anti-BLM right now. I mean, honestly, it sounds like Dano is a Chinese mouthpiece. He is, Karen. Well spotted. Like, but he and Kurt are both like, how? That sounds good, though. That sounds... So non-governmental organizations, private individuals, anti-authoritarianism, anti-fas... And so the CIA is involved in non-violent things, and if...
So color revolution is really just a kind of moniker for creating unrest abroad for political ends. That this is how they kind of co-opted the left in the 60s and 70s, right? They use the language of democracy, and so the
this is the language of democracy. This isn't actual. This isn't. These people don't have these actual ideas. I mean, it's basically MK Ultra. These people, they don't want
color revolution. Oftentimes,
yeah, that's it. Like people in Hong Kong don't want to be free. They just been bullshitted by the CIA into thinking so.
Sometimes even the protests themselves are named after a color. The Orange Revolution, for example, in Ukraine in 2004.
Right.
So
that's so interesting.
So the color revolution is really just a name to show that there's something rising, right? Democracy is rising.
So they branded it like McDonald's, like he's like the Ray Kroc that made McDonald's. This guy of
Gene Sharp. He's very well. A lot of people on the left, even Howard Zinn, defended him upon close to his death, saying that he was someone who had a lot of principles and.
Yeah, but we all know that isn't true. Oh, thanks, Larry. Appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. By the way, I should reset. You're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. Can you? They're both still having a hard time with this. They're still both trying to figure out how to shit on this guy's memory. And Danny Haifong is basically saying, "Yeah, fuck that. Peaceful, nonviolent revolutions that overthrow authoritarianism. This is just Western imperialism. This is the bleeding of Western ideals and destroying the very people that, that should be allowed to have whatever authoritarian government there. This is like anti-CCP.
Was on the left, but he actually was very deep in the national security state of the United States, helping CIA, helping these organizations.
So.
Well, no. How? Then if he's helping the CIA, then the CIA apparently has a vested interest in nonviolent ideological changes in countries, which also cuts against this. Would I consider debating these idiots about China? Of course.
Do their work abroad.
So you go on to tell more of the story.
Yeah, let's just get past that because you fucked up my whole narrative. Now somehow the CIA is the good guys in this. It's and that. Can we get back to me slamming this Jew with too much money?
And you say, while Western media has portrayed the event as a Chinese government massacre, journalists on the ground rejected that premise. Graham Earnshaw of Reuters saw no violence in the square and said at least half the deaths that occurred were Chinese cops and soldiers.
At least half? Oh, so the other half. So it was a fight between cops and soldiers and unarmed civilians. By the way, let me remind everybody, in China, there is no Second Amendment. These are not, if you want to talk about we need to fight a tyrannical government, rise up, we have the right to bear arms. There is none of that in China. You're talking about rocks, sticks. If they get a gun, they're taking it from somebody after a bunch of other people have been killed. And by the way, what Danny and Jimmy are asking you to do is trust the numbers the Chinese gave about the number of dead in Tiananmen Square.
Yep.
Propaganda is vital to color revolutions. We hear of Tank Man.
Well, it's also an ideological war. It's only propaganda if you're against it in this particular case.
Tank Man, that's the guy I met.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We hear
how did he lose his legs then?
We hear of Tank Man, but not that his actions occurred the day.
He lost his legs at a imperialism convention. Were you not paying attention, Kurt? He gave them to an oil company in exchange for eternal life. They put him on an adrenochrome drip.
After June 4th, or that he left the scene unscathed without any violence from Chinese authorities. This is confirmed in the video of the incident.
Right. Nobody said he got ran over on that day. He became an emblem because he alone stood there and they started moving the tank around. They didn't end up running him over. Now, this is like the fucking Mandela effect. They're just making up a detail that supposedly happened.
I don't have that video. A WikiLeaks cable also corroborated that no violence occurred on Tiananmen Square on June 4th. The cable was from the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. It confirmed no violence occurred and that protesters freely came and left the square.
Mm-hmm.
Only the Telegraph has reported on the cable.
Hasp?
Really?
Really?
Since June 4th, 1989, China has accomplished major achievements.
Yes, they have. And all of them entailed them opening up to the West. Every last one of them.
The elimination of extreme poverty.
No, they just declared anybody with more that makes $401 a year. Before the number was like tacked to standard of living. Now, if you make or you're seen to make and a household makes $401, you're no longer poor instantly. You don't have a shortage or whatever. Just at that line. They have not eliminated extreme poverty. That's horseshit. Hold on. Mm-hmm. 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 Same issue of homelessness that any major city has all the time. What the country is doing. Social workers in China spend considerable time and energy helping the homeless. Thanks, Maxwell. They're like, hold on. The guys at that's just like a white paper somebody did. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've been asked to fill in for Joan Esposito on WCPT this Thursday, so I said yes. Hold on. I wish I had this like called already because it was like I don't know that it was like. Oops. Give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Let's see, sir. Let's see if this guy. Maybe some of this.
I can pull back.
Hold on. They're in. This is.
Crap, and I'm going to call it crap. That is not a good part of Chinese culture. It's based in superstitious nonsense. It's witchcraft. It's the same kind of thing you see in Africa with the...
This is when they're using like animals like for medicine, that kind of stuff. The dog meat part. Okay, this is a different one. Hold on. I'll find a... He covers all this kind of stuff. And this is... Serpent ZA and Lao I-86, both of them are people like I who love Chinese people, Chinese culture, have for a long time. And there you go. I'll skip through some of this.
前面有路吗？好。
Welcome everybody to another episode of ADV China. We're talking poverty today. So...
I mean, I know it's not a cheery thing, but there is something I think that needs to be addressed, and it's something that is constantly lied about by the leadership in China, and it's something that I think is unfair to Chinese people.
Agreed. Hold on 1 second. Let me skip ahead because they do a bunch of this stuff. This is understand, like, think about this in the terms of what Danny and those guys are all saying.
Urban area. I don't know, what would you call this?
I would say it's smack dab like average China.
Yeah, average Chinatown that you see in the more rural areas. You can see the street food there. You know, this is the kind of main area of the town. You can see they've got restaurants set. Sometimes
it took us, when I was shooting there, 45 minutes to an hour extra to get to where we were shooting, even if you looked at the map and you're like, why don't we go straight through there? It's because they didn't want us with a film crew to drive through areas like this.
Like those plastic things. That's actually where people will sit down and eat.
Yeah. Cell phone shop.
Yeah. Water on the ground as usual. I hate to say it. That's made their own.
Small town China. It's like spare time.
Yeah.
Around. These guys built a motorcycle or something, and they all took turns trying out what these guys were building. It was cute. Yeah.
Kind of restaurants, the same kind of signs, the same kind of activities. You know, that's rural China.
If it's not meant for tourism, it's going to look the same.
It's going to look like that. Yeah. We've got so much footage. This isn't, to be honest, we didn't go and like handpick this footage and say this is like a representation of poverty or something. No. This is just a normal, we're going through our library like, let's talk about, you know, China, what it really looks like. So we're leaving this town, and I put into my GPS our destination, okay, which I can't even remember what it was, but it led us down this path that you can see in the background. So we get out the town, and it wants us to go through this like very rural area in order to get over a mountain, basically.
Yeah, my film crew was literally driven like around and away from these places for fear that we would shoot it. I was there 2017, 18, and 19 on like for a month away at a chunk.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I would be there for a month, and then I would come back, and then I would go back for another month, and then I would come back, and you know, it was like 4 months out of each year.
That's what the GPS was saying, and I was like, this doesn't seem right, but whatever, let's follow it.
Right.
So then what kind of happened was we ended up on this dirt road over here, as you can see. And then you can see where the people actually live, the people that go down into that town to hang out and buy stuff. And you were asking this lady over here, this very interesting one-legged lady.
Missing a leg, yeah.
Yeah, one-legged lady with her geese and chickens.
We could call her.
Yeah, exactly. Now, she was like, this happens a lot, by the way. You're like, can we go? Is there a road up there? And she's like, yes, go that way. Go that way.
Well, I was asking.
Just get out of here. I knew that happens a lot, too. Just like, yeah, shoo.
The town. Right?
Yeah.
So I said, where's the town?
They'll point in the direction they think you look like you're going, so you just go away. And China's not the only country that does that.
She's very confident in her response. Yeah, just go this way.
Just go this way.
Oh, I got a yes for it. I got a great feel for what it was like when I was there.
This way. Guess what? That doesn't go anywhere.
Well, it went somewhere.
Yeah, it went to like a goat path. Yeah.
Oh, he's doing an ad for VPN. Okay, so anyways, they go up through this town, and this is in general. Anytime we were in a town, not a city, if you looked at a side road, this is what everything looked like. That right there, that building right there, that kind of stuff. In Beijing, the first time I went to China in 2001, I went to Beijing, right in front of the Forbidden City. There were what were called the hutongs, and they were mud hut kind of looking buildings, hand built just like this, in like by the dozens in front of the Forbidden City. And everybody, like 8 families in these lines, would use one toilet. There was no running water. There was somebody had run a pipe halfway down the lanes, so people would go fill buckets and that kind of stuff. And then everybody just shared and lived off of that. And tourists would come and look at the hutongs. And I remember being there and knowing the people, like, it was a big tourist spot, was to go to hutongs. And I was like, it was depressing. It was like, ironically, it had been there forever, for decades, in front of the Forbidden City, which is this ginormous, like, castle space just on the other side of the wall. Yeah, it was, these kind of things in Beijing, downtown proper. And before the Olympics, they broomed all of them, took all the families that were in there and moved them. They built a building and said, you live there now. And then they just bulldozed the whole thing and stuff. And I remember some people going, it's sad that they're bulldozing the Hutongs, you know, and I'm like, only for you. That's a shitty way to live, especially in a country that's supposed to have resources like this. And they wanted to put on a good view. Now, and I was like, I thought it was a good thing that they were moving them to these high rises. The question was the quality of those high rises or whether they were actually moved there at all. Later on, it seemed to be, from people I talked to, that they were not moved to better quarters within Beijing. They were moved outside the city, away from everyone else.
A lot of people live here, and you'll also see there are people walking on the side of the road, etc., etc. But this is kind of China, you know. This is
not a poor province, not even a poor town. Very average.
What is the...
Yeah, you're talking about in the alleged 1.3 billion people that are there, 600 to 700 million people live like this.
You know, what would you say the percentage of people that live in this kind of situation are?
At least 40%.
Yeah.
Right? So when you read statistics about China, you're going to think, oh, wow, it's completely urbanizing, yeah?
Yeah.
But almost half of the population still lives in conditions like this.
Yeah, I mean, look, here we got a dude herding his goats.
Right. Which is whatever, right?
I mean, it's a simple life.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is there's nothing wrong with this lifestyle. I'm not trying to say that herding goats and living in a shack in the rural mountainside or whatever is bad. No. It's just that this is a reality.
Right.
And this is a reality that China tries to hide.
That's well said.
You know, and it's very frustrating because...
Yeah, instead of just understanding that that's part of the lifestyle, like India shows this part of its people, and nobody messes with them. Nobody says India's crap because they have goat herders, right?
Every time you want to talk about this kind of thing and point out that this is a reality in China, you get a slew of...
Yeah, that's they basically just dump those people out of the city. And as far as sustainability, I mean, most of these people are running electricity off of diesel motors or coal plants.
Of people trying to attack you and defend China as being modern and lifting everybody out of poverty and so on. Meanwhile, this is actually what China's like.
There's been a trend of a lot of videos. There are paid influencers that we've spoken about many times in China, and they pay Westerners to go make China look good.
Yeah.
The whole China's...
Dude, I realized that was largely what we were doing over there, and the whole story they were telling us is like, we really want to show you what we've been doing to help people with poverty and stuff like that. My antenna went up, and then every day as we continued to shoot, except when life would just squeeze through, like the time our driver was abducted while we were going to a location. The cops pulled us over and just snatched our driver away. He was screaming and fighting with them as he left. It was so weird. That most of the time they were going way out of their way to make sure we didn't see it. Did I like China? I liked China more in the early 2000s when I was there by myself. Since Xi Jinping has took over, it's all about some absurd version of face that's just super authoritarian and very dangerous.
It's trying to basically look like a first world country.
Yes.
When in fact the reality is this is not even taken that long ago. This is what the reality of China is. You will never...
By the way, match this with the ghost cities and understand even the high-rises are largely fake.
See this kind of stuff on their channels.
Yeah.
So when these paid influencers or paid YouTubers go out, they'll call a video like, this is the real hidden China, deep secret China, to make it look like you're going to see something.
And then they'll show you a new project like an underground railway or a high-speed train or an airport or something.
The reality is when you go around with a government minder and a government person that
we had one
literally has
we also had two producers with us who were basically working there.
An itinerary for you.
Like they were working as minders without being official minders.
They're never, ever going to take you here. And this is not something we have to go searching deep for.
No. If you went to India, seriously, if you went to most Middle Eastern countries where you could get around, anywhere that you could be safe going around, relatively safe as anyway, Africa, whatever, nobody'd give a shit. You'd see there'd be big gleaming cities. And then like you go to Delhi and like, oh my gosh, it's a huge city. Or Thailand, go to Bangkok or something. It's an obviously modern city. It's, you know, it's different than American cities or European cities, but it's definitely advanced in many ways and has a functioning structure that you'd recognize. But then you go out in the rural areas and it looks like this, and there's no shame about it. The difference is when you hide it, and the value of hiding it includes essentially making people vanish. That's when it gets scary.
No, this is something we see every single day if you just have your own means of transportation. So when you see these people that go out there to get paid to make China look very rich or whatever, the reality is that China is about somewhere in the middle of the world. It's nowhere near the developed world.
No.
In fact, most of the country that we would go on, you would be able to see in your own vehicle is third world.
Correct.
It is not a developed country. And the thing is, just because the leader of China, Xi Jinping, can say we've eradicated poverty, it just means that these people aren't allowed to talk about poverty.
Right. That's the thing. They hide it
anymore.
Well, I mean, you can see here they're doing a little bit of construction in the rural area, kind of destroying nature's whatever. That's kind of common. We got lots of clips of that in different parts of the country. But, you know, again.
Yeah, they build these buildings and then if you drive by a year later, they'll be empty.
It's not that...
no one in them. Not even that lady. The lady with the one leg down the street with the geese. They don't go, hey, congratulations, here's your new building. Move over here. Move across the street. We gave you a bigger building. We just keep people busy. That's what we do.
China's poor, and we're not trying to do anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, if you try to show this footage and you try to show the people living there, it'll be completely wiped off the internet. It'll be denied. They will deny, no, this doesn't exist in China. That's what's really freaking annoying is all those paid influencers, they won't acknowledge that this is a real thing in China. And
again, like I said, if you go to India or something like that,
the government,
that's a natural part of what's there. There's no shame in it. We have Appalachia over here. The U.S. government is not forcing people not to film in the Tennessee mountains. Is that to keep people employed? Yes, Karen. The problem is it's construction for construction's sake and no one knows what they're doing. So on my second trip there by myself, before I did the show I was doing, one of the big stories was that there was an earthquake in this town and all the school children, basically almost 1-to-1, every school-age child in the city had died because the buildings they were in had all collapsed. A lot of the other buildings were still up, but specifically in this earthquake, the new school buildings that they had built for all the school children had all collapsed. It just flattened. And it was because the dude who was in charge of building them for the Communist Party, for the city or whatever, the regional provisional government or whatever, had sold all the rebar. He built these concrete buildings out of concrete blocks, and the rebar they had set aside for it, the dude just sold them. And there was no building inspector to come by and check and go, why the fuck isn't there any rebar in any of these 3-story fucking concrete block buildings? And it's horrifying. The other big story when I was over there, like we're having this problem with our, you notice the Russian media is picking on America for baby food shortages and Fox News is dicking around. The Chinese media isn't saying shit about that. Well, that's because they had a major baby formula poisoning that happened across the country. It was horrifying. And now they're the two biggest smuggled items into China, things that people sneak into China when they go to Hong Kong specifically is what they were doing, is baby formula and chocolate, because all the chocolate is fake. It's all just flavoring. There's no real chocolate in the country.
Massive wage growth and global leadership.
Bullshit.
In high tech.
Nonsense. Like all this is like, again, if you're talking about, this is Danny's written piece. This is like cut straight from the CCP. There's no global leadership in high tech. China does not have global leadership in high tech. They have one awesome company, DJI. They're the drone company. Awesome. They do great work. But in spite of their connection to the government, not the other way around.
Public infrastructure development.
Nonsense.
And renewable energy.
Baloney. I literally went to a recycling plant where the container that was where all the recyclables were supposed to go into and be processed, the big tank that was a receiver with a big, like an open valve on the top of it so that all the plastic could go into it, was fake. It was painted. It was a concrete mold made to look like a tank, like a big water tank. It was literally shaped to, it was solid. It was solid concrete. It was not, there was, oh, God damn it. Hal, what do you think about the leftover men and women problem? Horrifying, Chris. So we've talked about the demographics in China a little bit, but there are way fewer men and women than they said because of the one-child policy than they need to repopulate, and they lied, and they overcounted their population by 132 million, largely in the 18 to 45 or 18 to 35 category, and it's most like where there are people, it's men. There are way fewer women. They overcounted the women more than they overcounted the men. It's bad. And all the women, by the way, because they you know, their families want them to have a decent life most of the time, and there's so few of them, they want them where the moneyed men are. So they send them to the port cities, they send them to Shanghai and Beijing and stuff where they might meet a politician or a head of industry or somebody like that, or the son of somebody in that, instead of some other villager. So all the villages are just full of dudes. It's a sausage fest.
But the West's pursuit of
global birth control now, 420 God, we already have that. We do not have an overpopulation problem worldwide. We don't. The opposite is true.
war and color revolution.
But the West's pursuit of war and color continues. By the way, by the way, Jimmy's reading this as fact when it is straight out of like a Beijing pamphlet. China's accomplished major achievements: the elimination of extreme poverty. Nonsense. They just changed the name of what it means to be extremely impoverished from $400 to $401. If you have $1 over, $400 a year, you are no longer living in extreme poverty. Is your life that different from $400 to $450? No. You still have the exact same life. Your life is not going to change until you clear the 2,000 mark in China, as in USD per year. Period. Nothing is going to change fundamentally about your life. The scramble will always be there. It's garbage. Elimination of massive wage growth. No, they haven't. They've been printing billionaires and millionaires. None of them can leave the country with their money. It's all fart air. It's all fang pi. And global leadership in high tech. Says who? What thing? What are you talking about? Like I said, DJI is great, but what leadership in high tech? What are you talking about? Now, honestly, I don't know. South Korea? Fuck yeah. Austria and CERN. UK, Taiwan, the United States. I mean, basically, if you borrow everything Taiwan does and pretend that's what mainland China does, maybe public infrastructure development. Jesus Christ, like this is just fucking dumb. Hold on, China, the debt on their bullet trains is absurd. Okay, this is, and you don't even have to look hard to search this stuff because it's so readily available. It's like fucking everywhere. Hold on, but China's high-speed railways plunged from high profits into a debt trap. They are at what, 5 trillion yuan, maybe more. Hold on, maybe there's a witness sharp decline in the transportation density. They built all these lines that go to places people don't go. So Beijing, Shanghai does very well. It has a lot of people going on it, except once COVID happened and all the lockdowns did, so they all froze up. They're just sitting there rusting essentially. But this, the 1776 kilometer Lanzhou to Urumqi line has only 2.3 million. Same costs, same construction costs, same everything, and like, 5% the business year round. China's overall transportation density for HSR was 17 per passenger kilometers in 2015, while it was 34 passenger kilometers for Japan's Shinkansen in the same year. So think about this. The size of Japan and the population of Japan, which is, you know, whatever. Let's look at what's the Japan's current population. This will give you an idea. Okay, so Japan has 125 million people in it, okay? Almost as many people as Russia does. That's hilarious. The next up is Russia. 125 million people. And there are more people riding the trains in Japan, double the number of people riding the trains in Japan than there are in China for high-speed rail. What? How is that a sign of wealth in the country? Do you realize how few people can afford to take high-speed rail? And there's their debt versus interest payments. Yeah, there we go. Now we're still on this part. It's long. Sorry.
Continues.
We'll do the first half of this because we don't have to do all of it because you get the point.
Tank man propaganda conceals images such as these, and there they are. Seems like they're having a good time together.
Yeah, they're just having a good time together in the roundup, and if you move, you die.
The truth is, no major clashes between peaceful protesters and authorities occurred. The violence stemmed from rioters outside the square, and half the casualties were authorities facing down heavy arms.
Facing down heavy arms.
So there was violence there, right, Danny?
Yep, indeed there was. It happened the
It was all CIA guys.
night of June 3rd into June 4th. And the violence...
Yeah, it's weird that the other protesters who were rounded up aren't moving.
There's still a lot of misunderstanding, not a lot of understood about it, other than
it was all, not a lot of people understand the Tiananmen Square rebellion, but what we do understand is that it was all fomented by a super Jew in the CIA, and that the Chinese people didn't really want it, and when given half a chance, they would just sit down with the soldiers and have a snack.
the fact that we know that there, yeah.
Well, all I ever heard of it was, oh, they ran this guy over with a tank.
No, you didn't.
I couldn't believe it on the recruiting thing. It still blows my mind.
Show it. Yeah, Jimmy doesn't know what the fuck Kurt is talking about.
And that's the thing. There was violence, but a lot of it wasn't covered by Western journalists. The journalist, I think his name was James Weidenberg, he's not a journalist, he's a photographer who took the Tank Man photo. He was very angry that he couldn't stay at the square longer because he was so injured from a rioter who had hit him in the head with a rock the night before, about 5 kilometers away.
And this is why the Jan 6ers need to be set free, and BLM needs to do a roundup.
A lot of the violence.
They need to round up all the Antifa and BLM. They were bringing soup.
Violence was happening.
He was hit by a can of soup.
And he was very worried that he wasn't going to get a Pulitzer because he didn't get enough material. But that sort of proves that there was violence happening. And one thing that you see from those
but not by the Chinese government. Those poor doves.
Photos that isn't often talked about is how Chinese soldiers, all the way up until the violence started 5 kilometers outside of Beijing and in other parts of the city.
Outside of the area where they had encircled it with armed soldiers.
Before that, Chinese soldiers, the PLA, were unarmed. And that's why there were so many cops and soldiers who died, because they were unarmed. They weren't ready to...
Because the government didn't trust them with arms.
...deal with riots. They were trying to negotiate with the protesters, and that's what happened for
the cops don't have guns. The cops don't get any respect. The culture ministry you'd have to be afraid of, but the cops, like, people just give them the finger and drive by. It's wild out there.
What the fuck are you talking about? When was Kurt there? It's wild in China. You can give the cop the finger and just keep driving.
And the Tank Man.
What?
And this is very, very interesting.
I think he's mixing it up with Dubai.
Because the full video shows so blatantly that, he was standing in front of a tank, moving around the tank, gets on top of the tank.
Wait a minute. What? Get that video. Is that what he's saying? What is Jimmy looking at?
that,
Get that
I mean,
video.
he was standing
Get that video. Boy.
in front of a tank, moving
Get it. Get it. What did I tell you?
around the tank, gets on top of the tank,
Where is this
talks
video?
to the person.
Where's this video? Who am I? What the fuck? Who do I gotta fire around here to get? I mean, I thought we were all pulling together. Isn't this some like what part of Marx? Do you even Marxism, bro?
In the tank, and then
Now it's looking at us.
and gets off, and then people in the neighborhood kind of whisk him away and say, okay, you should probably get out of the way now. But he doesn't, there's no violence, he's not arrested, he's not shot at. So the tank man narrative is so strong. It's such a black op kind of propaganda.
Get the fuck out of here. No, just because Kurt misremembers. The whole point is this unarmed man with his groceries basically just standing in front of the tank. That was, it's an emblem of a man standing. And by the way, the nerve of these motherfuckers saying that the cops were injured because they weren't really armed and they didn't have any way of fighting back. And that's why the guy with the bags of groceries in his fucking work clothes standing in front of the tank is bullshit.
A message to demonstrate violence that...
Demonstrate violence? He was alone. He was trying to block a parade of tanks heading into the area.
The real violence that occurred that day has been so suppressed because
it was the rioters. It was the George Soros super Jew people.
There was involvement, right? There was Keller Revolution activity. There was...
Yes, there was an ideological revolution pushing back against Marxism in the country, which, by the way, ended up taking hold. Deng Xiaoping's Shanghai group was what brought in that era of great change from that period forward.
Funding coming in from the NED, from Soros' organization, from all sorts of sources.
Jesus Christ, like... From Soros, is Jimmy melting?
There was a CIA operation that allowed a lot of these forces to leave through Hong Kong into the United States. Chai Ling, who was one of the protest leaders, who called in an interview, in a secret interview with Western media, she called for the blood of Chinese people to be spilled in these protests in order to change the government, in order to overthrow the government. She was whisked away by Operation Yellowbird to the United States, and she ended up working at Bain Capital. I mean, this is sort of the involvement.
No,
this is some of the involvement.
Hold on. Let me get back. Like, see? This is what happens.
Was whisked away from protests in order to change the government, in order to overthrow the government. To be in a secret interview with Western media, she called for the blood of Chinese people to be spilled in these protests in order to change the government. Called in an interview into the United States that allowed a lot of these forces to leave through Hong Kong into the United States. Chai Ling, who was one of the protest leaders, who called in an interview, in a secret interview with Western media, she called for the blood of Chinese people to be spilled in these protests in order to change the government, in order to overthrow the government. She was whisked away by Operation Yellowbird to the United States, and she ended up working at Bain Capital. I mean, this is...
Let's see. You two. This is So this is what they're, and I don't know if this is the secret interview with Chai Ling. We will mobilize Chinese people around the world to protest martial law. Martial law won't succeed. In 10 days, in a year, in 100 years. Those who lose the hearts of the people will perish. Overthrow the illegal government headed by Li Peng.
Chai Ling had successfully resisted the proposal to move the struggle back to the campuses and allied herself once more with those determined to hold the square. On the following morning, she contacted American journalist Philip Cunningham.
I think this is what they're talking about.
I have been feeling very sad recently. The students themselves lack a developed sense of democracy. To be honest, from the day I called for a hunger strike, I knew we would not get any results. Certain people, certain causes are bound to fail. I have been very clear about this all along, but I've made an effort to present a staunch image, to show that we were striving for victory. But deep down, I knew it was all futile. The more involved I got, the sadder I became. I already felt this back in April. All along, I've kept it to myself, because being Chinese, I felt I shouldn't badmouth the Chinese. But I can't help thinking sometimes, and I might as well say it. You, the Chinese, you are not worth my struggle. You are not worth my sacrifice.
I think she's like 19, 18, 19 at this point.
But then, I can also see that in this movement, there are many people who do have a conscience. There are many decent people among the students, workers, citizens, and intellectuals. The students keep asking, what should we do next? What can we accomplish? I feel so sad. Because how can I tell them that what we are actually hoping for is bloodshed? For the moment when the government has no choice but to brazenly butcher the people. Only when the square is awash with blood will the people of China open their eyes. Only then will they really be united. But how can I explain any of this to my fellow students? And what is truly sad is that some students and some famous, well-connected people are working hard to help the government, to prevent it from taking such measures. For the sake of their selfish interests and their private dealings, they are trying to cause our movement to collapse and get us out of the square before the government becomes so desperate that it takes action. If we allow the movement to collapse on its own, then the government will be able to wipe out all the leaders of the movement.
Yeah. So, by the way, you have to look at this in context of not from the mentality of being an American also. That once this kind of thing ends, once it even takes, I mean, nobody protests right now as it is. There's been some crazy stuff around lockdowns recently, and it's been extraordinary when it happens in Shanghai, especially in other places. But after these kind of things go down, the results afterwards, what the government does to people and how they round them up and all that kind of stuff, is very different than a bunch of people saying this about Union Square in New York or the CHOP or the Chaz or fucking Occupy Wall Street. Because we're going to look at this as Americans, most of us, or in Western countries as a bunch of Occupy Wall Street kind of kids or a student protest. But this is not how it, after that's over, if you lose in this situation, you're dead or you're in jail forever.
As well as those leaders in the party and in the military who dare to oppose them, who represent the people. Deng Xiaoping has made it very clear that there is a small handful of people, not only in the party and in society, but also among the students.
The irony is, I think, interestingly enough, about this time and phase is that Deng Xiaoping was taking another track along the lines of what Xi was doing. But in many ways, he was trying to coordinate his opening of the country at the same time. And they both had dual tracks of almost the same thing, that there probably was a lot more crisscross in what both of them were trying to accomplish as far as the country than they realized. But both of them are afraid of how the whole thing will shake down because of the authoritarian base of the government. And so they were, it was a delicate bouncing back and forth.
That's why I feel so sad, because I can't say all this to my fellow students. I can't tell them straight out that we must use our blood and our lives to call on the people to rise up. Of course, the students will be willing, but they are still such young children.
And she's right. I mean, like, had there been a big slaughter, and Deng Xiaoping knew this, and it's one of the reasons why they dialed it back, and that's why there are a lot of people are trying to convince them not to do it, was so that there would be no fundamental change. They thought it might work, but there you go.
Are you going to stay in the square yourself? No, I won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had to leave. Anyway, so that's just that's the part he's talking about.
Why did the U.S. go to war in Iraq?
Hold on. That's where Danny Haifong is saying that she was calling for the protesters to be killed. She was intending to be one of those killed as well. That was the whole point. She was speaking in terms of a revolutionary.
Sort of the involvement.
Oh, and let's see. Hold on. There was a let's see. Was tenement. Let's see. Where does she? Alma mater, Peking University, Beijing, Harvard Business School, President Chief Officer. She works at Genzabar, President and Chief Operating Officer at Genzabar. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Let's see references. Headline book. A lot of this is really old. 2021. Here you go. RFA. This is I think this is the same. Yeah. So she writes for Radio Free Asia as well. Beijing's handling of the pandemic and repeated military incursions have hardened attitudes in Brussels. She wrote this article for Radio Free Asia with Shui Xiaoshan. A recent visit by members of the European Parliament to democratic Taiwan shows the European countries are starting to take seriously China's threat. Yeah. So anyways, she's also writing for Radio Free Asia, and the idea that, and she works for Zen. What's this company? Hold on. Hold on. Chai Ling. She is currently the, okay. So she's, I'm trying to find her most recent, and make sure it's the same one, because there's a few Chai Lung. Writer's life. There we go. She works for a company called, she's the founder of All Girls Allowed. I can't sign into, I have to sign in to look at that part of it. Hold on. I'll see if I can find this. Like, All Girls Allowed. So she's the founder. Tsai Lung is the founder of All Girls Allowed. It's a, in Jesus' name, simply love her. It is a Christian organization. She's emboldened the great commandment to love God and love our neighbor as we love ourselves, and the great commission to make disciplines of all nations. All Girls Allow exist to restore life, value, and dignity by educating, empowering women and girls, and engaging partners to realize global impact. The vision of All Girls Allowed is, in Jesus' name, simply love her as we love the least of these, those who are the most marginalized. We serve Jesus as we serve women and girls, and we help all realize their full potential as individuals who are valued and made in the image of God. So they advocate for the least of these, as it says, for poverty organization, partnerships with other groups, Wholeness, we believe that God intended for us to be whole, spiritually, vocationally, emotionally, relationship, physically, financially. Okay. Integrity, Proverbs tells the righteous walk in integrity, driven by faith. Okay. So she started this organization, and there she is. Not exactly Bain Capital. She's the founder and CEO of this Christian girls organization. She's a missionary, basically. She lives in Boston with her husband. This is, just for the record, All Girls Allowed is not a Bain Capital organization. Neither is Genzibar.
This is some of the involvement that the United States had in the Tiananmen Square incident, that the actual violence that occurred there doesn't get talked about because it would point to very suspicious activity.
Well, Soros' name is crazy to hear pop up in that. Like, he's also so. Wow, this is really wild, man.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, I'm done with that. We'll dance in that circle all goddamn day. Good Lord. But I mean, that's the simplest thing. Like, he drops the whole she works for Bain Capital, and they're like, that's it. I see. There you go. And now she's like one Google search and you find that she runs a Christian girls association. Fucking hell. So lazy. Again, all this to come down on the side of Tiananmen Square was bullshit. This is where Jimmy Dore is right now. That's the part that kind of is amazing. The Ukrainians have it coming because the Azov Battalion used to use a Nazi symbol, which is really a Viking symbol that they adjusted to mean national identity, NI. But it looks Nazi-esque, and the Nazis took, symbols. And if a Nazi takes a symbol and your culture tries to take it back, basically Tibet's full of Nazis because they have swastikas all over everything, according to the Dore doctrine. And then so the Ukrainians had it coming. Yemen, on the other hand, even though they have they're literally giving the Sieg Heil and the Nazi salute, they're off limits. The Russians do the same thing Jimmy accuses Israel of doing. The Russians have to do it. The Israelis are wrong to do it. Therefore, the only difference between these two groups of people is the fact that the Israelis are largely Jews, and it's seen as an identity move by the Jews. So, and then to reach back into Tiananmen Square and lay it at the feet of George Soros, fucking hell. I don't know how. All right. Anyways, I went way over tonight. I'm sorry if I drag some of this around. But this kind of stuff, like, especially when it's about China, it just sticks in my craw. Because, like, at what point do these people think that, like, I guess the assumption has to be that they assume their audience is not only as dumb as they are, but will stay that way. You know what I mean? Like that their audience, no matter who they are, is all going to land, doesn't buy, buys into whatever they're being told, swallows it hook, line, and sinker the same way Jimmy does. And if at any point, there's some contradictory information out there to be had, they know they'll ignore it. I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to send you guys over to see Airborne Ojeda. Bless him. And so I'm going to send a raid over his way. Don't forget to say hi. Tell him it's a Sparklers air raid. And I will see you guys tomorrow in the afternoon. No morning show. And then Wednesday, we will start a little later because of the Jan 6. I think they're up in the morning, if I'm right. If they're not, then we'll start at the regular time. And then Philip Ittner's going to be joining us on Wednesday for the morning show. Just a special report from Ukraine in the middle of it, because there's a lot going on over there. There's active fighting in Severodonetsk right now that's enormous. So anyways, take care of yourselves. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm sorry if we sometimes go down a rabbit hole that I feel like sometimes only I give a shit about. But But the lies around it and the egregious nature with which those lies are carried out is just embarrassing. It's aggravating. And I only wish people knew more foreign news than they do. I need to like dedicate and like foreign news Fridays on Friday mornings to just catch people up at the end of the week. Here's what happened overseas while you were navel gazing or while you were having it hidden from you. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, take care. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.